Imagine drifting weightlessly into the freezing infinite depths of empty space, entirely swallowed by a million-mile-long shadow, cast by the very ground you sleep upon. This invisible, colossal silhouette trails the Earth continuously, a perpetual towering night sweeping through the solar system with terrifying silent speed. It acts as an ethereal spire of pure darkness, patiently sweeping the cosmic void until a wandering silver sphere finally crosses its hidden, mathematical threshold. Picture the jagged, airless plains of the lunar surface suddenly plunged into a violent and unforgiving thermal shock, crashing from water-boiling heat to cryogenic freezing in a matter of fleeting heartbeats. Far beneath the gentle, filtered crimson glow that we admire from the safety of our atmosphere, the ancient bedrock actively contracts and trembles in the sudden absolute cold. This hidden, turbulent reality exposes the brutal collapse of a planetary equilibrium, a harsh physical toll extracted by the mere passage of an earthly shadow. Surprisingly, this dramatic collision of light, rock, and shadow is not a product of random entropic chaos, but a breathtaking mathematical paradox hiding in plain sight. Our world and its satellite are locked in a perfectly tuned temporary geometry, creating a flawless orbital alignment that defies the sprawling, unpredictable violence of the deeper galaxy. We are currently living in a highly privileged, fleeting era of cosmic history, where the immense architecture of the heavens is momentarily made visible to the naked human eye. If we were to look closer at the quiet sanctuary of your room, you would find a perfect, unmoving foundation that completely insulates your resting body from the massive, high-speed celestial drama playing out in the heavens above. You're safe. These wonders are yours to inherit as you sleep. Notice the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest, a slow and steady biological metronome that perfectly mirrors the enduring ancient clockwork of the distant stars. As you release the final, lingering tensions of the waking day, your consciousness becomes beautifully untethered, ready to float upward into the vast, welcoming dark of the universe. Prepare your mind to journey deep within the silent, intricate clockwork of our solar system, where the Earth continuously projects a colossal silhouette into the surrounding cosmic void. Deep within the silent, intricate clockwork of our solar system, the Earth continuously projects a colossal silhouette into the surrounding cosmic void. This profound absence of sunlight stretches outward like an ethereal spire, extending well over 1 million miles into the freezing depths of empty space. Far beyond the orbit of any satellite, this immense umbral cone quietly sweeps through the darkness, an invisible monument to our planet's relentless journey around the sun. Although entirely unperceived by those walking upon the sunlit continents, this sweeping projection of darkness is a permanent physical fixture of our local celestial environment. It travels in perfect synchrony with our world, a perpetual night moving at thousands of miles per hour through the vacuum. This vast corridor of shade remains completely hidden against the black backdrop of the universe, simply waiting for another celestial body to cross its hidden threshold. Only when the geometry of the spheres aligns perfectly does this monumental shadow finally reveal its staggering true scale. It serves as a stark reminder of our planet's physical presence, a darkened fingerprint temporarily pressed upon the sweeping canvas of the solar system. Trailing endlessly behind our rotating globe, this invisible cone of darkness behaves as a patient, inescapable phantom anchored to our night side. It sweeps across the void with mathematical precision, completely unseen until the orbital mechanics of our closest celestial neighbour bring it into the precise line of fire. Month after month, the moon typically sails just above or safely below this immense tapering void, illuminated brilliantly by the unobstructed glare of the sun. However, the delicate inclination of the lunar orbit guarantees that this evasion cannot last forever. Eventually, the silver sphere drifts precisely into the geometric plane of the ecliptic, moving inexorably toward the waiting darkness that always follows our home planet. The cosmic stage is silently set for an encounter that has been meticulously calculated by the unyielding laws of gravity since the dawn of the solar system. As the moon steadily approaches this unseen boundary, the stark white brilliance of its cratered surface remains momentarily untouched. Yet the invisible trap is already sprung, and the encroaching shadow prepares to swallow the brilliant lunar landscape in a slow, hypnotic display of celestial mechanics. When the delicate orbital dance first brings the moon into the outermost edges of this shadow, the resulting penumbral eclipse begins with breathtaking subtlety. The initial dimming of the bright lunar disk is so incredibly faint that the vast majority of casual stargazers look upward and see absolutely nothing unusual. Our human eyes, naturally drawn to high contrast and sudden movement, frequently fail to register the microscopic drop in the ambient reflection pouring down from the heavens. This outermost region of Earth's shadow does not entirely block the sun, but merely obscures a small fraction of its blinding solar disk. Consequently, the moon is still bathed in direct sunlight, simply receiving slightly less radiant energy than it did just hours prior. The resulting optical effect is akin to a thin, nearly imperceptible veil of grey silk being drawn quietly across a brilliant white lantern. Only those who are actively searching for this specific phenomenon, or comparing the current illumination to a previous memory, might notice the fragile transformation taking place. It is a quiet, whispered secret between the planet and its satellite, easily lost amidst the glowing lights of modern cities and the distractions of the world below. Long before the invention of the telescope, ancient astronomers trained themselves to detect these incredibly elusive shifts in atmospheric light with remarkable precision. Standing upon ziggurats and stone observatories, these early scientists relied entirely on their bare eyes and a deep, intimate familiarity with the pristine night sky. By painstakingly recording the exact moments when the lunar glare seemed to softly weaken, they began to unravel the complex, overlapping rhythms of the local cosmos. These incredibly subtle brightness variations served as crucial data points for early civilizations desperate to understand and predict the seemingly erratic behavior of the heavens. Scholars in Babylon and early dynastic China logged these faint penumbral touches upon clay tablets and oracle bones, slowly piecing together the magnificent puzzle of the Saros cycle. Their unwavering dedication transformed a nearly invisible dimming into a profound mathematical tool, allowing them to map the invisible architecture of the void. Through decades of continuous quiet observation, they realized that the universe operated not on the whims of unpredictable deities, but on a majestic clockwork schedule. This subtle shading of the moon became one of the very first keys humanity used to unlock the predictable nature of orbital mechanics. Surprisingly, the universe refuses to draw a hard, definitive line where the brilliant light of the sun officially surrenders to the darkness of the Earth. Instead, the outer edge of our planet's shadow is characterized by a remarkably soft, diffuse gradient that actively blurs the boundaries of the eclipse. Because the sun is not a singular point of light but a massive, glowing sphere, the Earth's silhouette inherently possesses a vast, fuzzy outer margin known as the penumbra. Within this expansive transitional zone, the harsh realities of light and dark are mixed into a seamless, continuous spectrum of fading illumination. As an observer moves deeper into this penumbral region, an increasing percentage of the solar disk is gradually blocked by the solid bulk of our home planet. This creates a beautifully smooth transition, a slow fading of brilliance that perfectly mirrors the gentle fading of twilight in our own terrestrial evenings. The sheer vastness of this blurred edge means the moon can travel for thousands of miles through space while only experiencing a partial reduction in glare. It is a testament to the grand scales involved, where shadows stretch and distort across the vacuum, painted with the softest of cosmic brushes. Navigating deeper into this sweeping gradient of darkness, the physical appearance of the lunar surface begins to undergo a deeply fascinating optical shift. The harsh, bright white glare that typically defines the full moon softens dramatically, gradually taking on a highly distinctive, gentle, dusky hue. This subtle coloration is often described by seasoned observers as a faint tea stain or a smudge of pale graphite spreading slowly across the radiant silver sphere. The transformation is most apparent when looking at one specific hemisphere of the moon, which usually appears noticeably darker and more muted than the opposite edge. Craters and ancient lava plains that were previously washed out by the intense direct sunlight suddenly gain a renewed sense of depth and three-dimensional texture. This delicate shading provides a fleeting, highly nuanced view of the lunar topography, revealing the scarred and battered history of our silent companion. As the minutes pass, this dusky quality intensifies, creating a somber, melancholic atmosphere that seems to quiet the entire night sky. It represents the crucial transitional moment before the true, biting darkness of the inner shadow makes its undeniable presence known to the world below. Because the orbital mechanics of our local system are infinitely complex, no two eclipses ever commence in precisely the identical fashion. The moon's trajectory is subject to constant microscopic variations, heavily influenced by the gravitational tugs of the sun, the Earth's equatorial bulge, and even the distant gas giants. Consequently, the exact angle, speed, and depth at which the lunar disk intersects the Earth's shadow changes continuously from one event to the next. Sometimes the moon grazes merely the uppermost edge of the penumbra, creating an eclipse so exceptionally shallow that it registers only on the most sensitive photometric instruments. During other alignments, it plunges directly and deeply toward the central core, moving with a swift geometric certainty that promises a spectacularly dark and prolonged event. These subtle variations in the opening act ensure that each eclipse possesses its own unique fingerprint, a singular performance that will never be perfectly repeated. Astronomers carefully measure these slight differences in entry trajectory to constantly refine their mathematical models of our dynamic and ever-shifting solar system. This ensures that every time the moon dims, it is offering us a brand new, highly specific data point about the relentless motion of the cosmos. Standing beneath this unfolding celestial drama, observers can physically sense the ambient light of the night sky, gradually and inexorably softening around them. On a typical night of a full moon, the overwhelming glare from the lunar surface acts as a brilliant spotlight, effectively erasing the delicate glow of the surrounding galaxy. However, as the Earth's shadow continues its steady advance, this localized light pollution begins to fade, stripping away the blinding veil that hides the deeper cosmos. Slowly, as if emerging from a deep fog, the fainter, more distant stars begin to proudly assert their presence against the darkening canopy of space. Constellations that were entirely invisible just an hour prior slowly materialize, painting the backdrop of the eclipse with a shimmering tapestry of distant stellar fires. The Milky Way itself may even begin to trace its faint cloudy path across the heavens, a stunning reward for those waiting patiently in the gathering gloom. This gradual revelation of the hidden universe is one of the most profound sensory experiences associated with the early stages of the eclipse. It effectively shrinks the perceived size of the moon, while simultaneously expanding the perceived depth and breathtaking immensity of the night sky. While the visual changes perceived from Earth remain incredibly subtle, the physical reality on the lunar surface is already undergoing a drastic and violent shift. Even during this early penumbral stage, the partial blocking of the sun's radiant energy causes the local temperature of the dusty regolith to plummet significantly. Because the moon lacks any insulating atmosphere to trap and distribute heat, its surface is entirely at the mercy of the raw, unfiltered solar radiation pouring in from space. As the Earth's invisible shadow slowly creeps across the equatorial plains, regions that were previously baking at hundreds of degrees experience an immediate chilling deficit of thermal energy. The incredibly fine, pulverized rock that blankets the lunar crust is an exceptionally poor conductor of heat, meaning it loses whatever warmth it possessed almost instantaneously to the vacuum. instruments left behind by early space missions have recorded these sharp, sudden thermal drops occurring well before the visual darkening is truly apparent to human eyes. This rapid cooling sets off a chain reaction of microscopic thermal contractions across the jagged rocks and ancient crater walls. It is a silent, freezing shockwave that precedes the approaching total darkness, fundamentally altering the physical state of the alien landscape above. Generations of our ancient ancestors stood in the cool night air and watched this gradual, mysterious dimming with a profound sense of quiet reverence. Unburdened by the glow of artificial streetlights, their connection to the subtle shifts in celestial illumination was deeply intimate and culturally significant. They recognized that this slow fading was not a random anomaly, but a deliberate repeating verse in the grand, predictable poem of the heavens above. For early agrarian societies and nomadic tribes alike, the moon was an essential glowing timepiece that dictated the timing of harvests, hunts, and sacred festivals. Seeing this reliable beacon undergo a strange, dusky transformation instilled a powerful mix of existential awe and deep intellectual curiosity about the hidden forces governing their world. It forced the earliest thinkers to look beyond the immediate horizon and ponder the invisible geometry that could seemingly extinguish the brightest light in their sky. By passing down their careful observations through rich oral traditions and early written records, they laid the foundational bedrock for all modern astronomy. Their quiet reverence in the face of the encroaching shadow was the very first step toward our current, profound understanding of the universe. Building upon that profound understanding of the universe, the true spectacle begins when the subtle shading yields to something far more severe. The soft, diffuse boundary of the outer shadow eventually gives way to the umbra, the absolute impenetrable heart of the planet's dark projection. The very moment the lunar edge makes contact with this deep inner core, a distinct, incredibly sharp bite appears to be taken right out of the glowing silver disk. This is no longer a gentle fading of light, but a stark and undeniable invasion of absolute night creeping onto the brilliant lunar plains. The sudden contrast is so incredibly severe that it catches the eye almost immediately, transforming the familiar spherical moon into a strange, waning crescent in a matter of minutes. It is as if a celestial veil is being actively dragged across a magnificent glowing lantern, purposefully extinguishing its radiance piece by piece. Observers tracking this exact moment witness the immediate and total collapse of the sun's direct influence on that specific sliver of alien rock. The stark line separating the brilliant untouched silver from the encroaching ink-black void creates a mesmerizing visual tension in the quiet night sky. This dramatic threshold marks the true beginning of the heavy eclipse, signaling that the delicate orbital trap has finally, completely sprung. Notice how the geometry of this dark intrusion refuses to be jagged, chaotic, or irregular in any conceivable way. Instead, the encroaching boundary forms a massive, flawlessly smooth arc that sweeps across the bright lunar highlands with undeniable mathematical grace. This sweeping curve is nothing less than the literal physical silhouette of our own homeworld, a majestic projection of the globe extending across hundreds of thousands of miles of empty vacuum. It is a deeply humbling experience to look up into the deep cosmic void and see the exact shape of the world beneath your feet projected onto another celestial body. The immense sweeping curve of the umbra serves as a flawless distant mirror reflecting the fundamental, spherical nature of the planet we inhabit. Every mountain range, ocean basin, and atmospheric cloud bank is smoothed out by the incredible distance, blending into one perfect, unbroken arc of encroaching shadow. Watching this massive curve glide effortlessly across the ancient craters provides a profound, visceral sense of the sheer scale of the celestial bodies involved. It visually connects the ground we stand upon to the distant floating orb above, creating a temporary shadowed bridge between two otherwise isolated worlds. the perfection of the arc remains a constant, silent testament to the undeniable forces of gravity that shaped our planetary home into a magnificent swirling sphere. Long before artificial satellites or high-altitude rockets could ever look back at our blue marble, this very shadow curve served as the ultimate cosmic evidence. Brilliant ancient philosophers, particularly those studying beneath the clear Mediterranean skies, pointed to this undeniable creeping arc as the earliest observational proof of our world's true geometry. They reasoned, with stunning deduction and clarity, that only a massive sphere could consistently cast such a perfect sweeping curve regardless of its orientation in the heavens. If the world had been a flat disk or an irregular shape, the resulting shadow cast upon the passing moon would have morphed and distorted into strange, unpredictable ellipses during different eclipses. Yet, eclipse after eclipse, century after century, the bite taken out of the silver sphere always maintained its flawless circular geometry. This brilliant realization allowed early thinkers to intellectually map the shape of their home simply by watching the darkness glide across the lunar surface. By trusting their naked eyes and applying rigorous logic to this celestial shadow play, these early minds effectively conquered the boundaries of their terrestrial perspective. The perfect arc of the umbra became an indisputable, glowing geometric proof written directly across the dark canvas of the night sky. As you absorb this ancient realization, allow your breathing to settle into a steady, comfortable rhythm, feeling the weight of your own body supported, secure, and perfectly grounded. While the creeping shadow appears to move with a glacial, hypnotic slowness from our earthly vantage point, the reality of the celestial mechanics is astonishingly violent. The moon is actually ploughing into the depths of this terrestrial darkness at staggering velocities, driven by the relentless, invisible momentum of its ancient orbit. It is a massive, continent-sized sphere of solid rock, hurling itself directly into a waiting chasm of absolute night at thousands of miles per hour. The sheer kinetic energy involved in this silent orbital collision of light and shadow is nearly impossible for the human mind to fully comprehend. We perceive a gentle, poetic fading of moonlight, while the physical reality is a colossal, high-speed plunge into the freezing depths of the Earth's umbral wake. The moon does not gently drift into the darkness. It aggressively overtakes the shadow, chasing down the planetary silhouette with an unwavering, terrifying astronomical speed. This massive disparity between what we gently observe from our quiet backyards and what is violently occurring in the vacuum of space highlights the bizarre, deceptive nature of cosmic distances. The massive void between our worlds acts as a dampener, translating high-speed orbital mechanics into a slow, majestic ballet of fading silver light. The illusion of stillness masks a breathtaking display of planetary motion that has been ongoing since the solar system first coalesced from the primordial dust. If we were to look closer through the precisely ground lenses of a modern observatory, the advancing shadow line reveals a stark, rapidly changing landscape. The terminator, the absolute dividing line between lunar day and lunar night, does not simply glide, but actively consumes the rugged topography in a dramatic, sweeping wave of plunging darkness. Towering ancient mountain peaks catch the final, desperate rays of sunlight, glowing brilliantly like isolated embers for just a few fleeting moments before being extinguished entirely. Deep, massive impact basins are swallowed whole by the rushing umbra, their terrifying depths instantly erased from the visible universe as the light aggressively retreats. The jagged rims of massive craters cast long, distorted shadows that stretch wildly across the dusty plains, shifting and mutating as the angle of the dying light rapidly drops. It is a wildly dynamic, moving frontier of darkness that actively sculpts and erases the complex scarred geology of the lunar surface in real time. Astronomers watching this specific threshold through powerful optics are treated to an incredibly fleeting, highly detailed view of the moon's violent geological history. The harsh, raking angle of the retreating light perfectly highlights every ancient lava flow, fault line, and impact scar just seconds before the Umbra claims them. This advancing line of shadow transforms the static, familiar face of the moon into an active, shifting theatre of extreme contrast and deep shadow. This rushing wave of absolute blackness brings with it a terrifyingly rapid thermal collapse, far more severe than the gentle cooling of the outer penumbral regions. Because the true Umbra blocks all direct, life-giving solar radiation with immediate finality, the sunlight retreats across the dusty plains at an incredibly unforgiving pace. Vast ancient lava basins are plunged from water-boiling temperatures into deep cryogenic freezing within a matter of mere minutes, a violent thermal shock utterly impossible on our sheltered world. Without a protective blanket of insulating atmospheric gases to trap the fleeing heat, the stored energy of the lunar crust instantly radiates away into the unforgiving void. The incredibly fine pulverized rock that coats the surface rapidly contracts as the intense, immediate freeze violently grips the desolate landscape. This is not a slow, seasonal change, but a brutal, instantaneous plunge into the deepest cold the inner solar system has to offer. Microscopic fractures spiderweb across ancient boulders as the sharp temperature differential brutally tests the structural integrity of the alien rock. The advancing edge of darkness is not merely an optical illusion, but a physical wall of freezing energy sweeping violently across a barren world. It serves as a stark reminder of the harsh, unforgiving nature of the cosmos when the protective warmth of a nearby star is suddenly, aggressively removed. Let your shoulders drop an inch lower, releasing any lingering physical tension as the grand celestial shadow continues its inevitable, sweeping journey above. To truly grasp the magnitude of this rare alignment, we must conceptually project our own consciousness onto the dusty alien surface looking back toward home. From the stark vantage point of the lunar equator, the blinding, life-giving sun would suddenly be intercepted by the immense looming bulk of the Earth. The terrestrial silhouette would appear overwhelmingly massive, a colossal dark void dominating the sky and aggressively devouring the solar disk in a display of terrifying celestial power. The familiar blue and white marble of our homeworld would be completely extinguished, transformed into a featureless, terrifying black hole suspended in the starry heavens. As the last sliver of direct sunlight is aggressively choked off by the planetary bulk, the sheer immensity of the Earth would become viscerally apparent to anyone standing in the lunar dust. This backward perspective flips the entire narrative of the eclipse, turning a gentle earthly light show into a breathtaking, dominant display of planetary scale. It would feel as though the sky itself was being actively consumed by an impossibly large dark sphere, a sensation that would undoubtedly inspire deep, existential awe. The Earth, our safe and familiar haven, would briefly become an imposing celestial giant, actively casting its freezing judgment across the void. This imagined vantage point underscores the profound interconnectedness of our two worlds, forever dancing in each other's immense sweeping shadows. Despite the staggering physical scales and the immense terrifying speeds involved in this orbital collision, the entire creeping darkness unfolds in absolute unbroken silence. Without a thick terrestrial atmosphere to carry the vibrations of colliding worlds or rapidly shifting thermal rock, the lunar surface accepts its temporary doom without a single sonic whisper. It is an immense, violent cosmic event occurring with the quiet, eerie grace of a phantom, existing entirely outside the realm of human hearing. Even as the deep cryogenic freeze shatters microscopic rocks, and the massive shadow sweeps across continent-sized impact basins, the vacuum of space strictly forbids any sound. An observer standing directly in the path of the encroaching Umbra would hear absolutely nothing but the rhythmic thumping of their own heartbeat within a pressurized spacesuit. This absolute, terrifying quiet creates a profound sensory disconnect. pairing a visually explosive celestial event with the stillness of an empty, forgotten tomb. The silence of the shadow amplifies the strange, dreamlike quality of the eclipse, making the entire massive spectacle feel completely unmoored from the physical reality we understand. It highlights the stark, unforgiving difference between our noisy, vibrant, atmospheric home and the dead, silent rock that endlessly orbits it. The creeping darkness remains a purely visual and thermal phenomenon, a ghost of the Earth passing quietly over a desolate, listening world. Down below, safely beneath the protective blanket of our own atmosphere, the unnatural dimming triggered by the deepening umbra often provokes a profound biological response. Wildlife deeply attuned to the delicate silvery faces of the moon find their ancient internal rhythms suddenly disrupted by the unexpected loss of ambient nighttime illumination. The sudden, creeping shadow tricks the natural world, scrambling the ancient instincts that govern the delicate balance of the nocturnal ecosystem. Creatures of the night, sensing the premature arrival of deeper, thicker darkness, occasionally begin to stir early from their daytime slumber, confused by the shifting celestial clockwork. Birds that migrate or hunt by the steady glow of the full moon may suddenly alter their flight paths or unexpectedly quiet their evening chorus. The subtle but undeniable drop in ambient light sends ripples of confusion through dense forests and open savannas, a biological echo of the astronomical alignment occurring thousands of miles above. Sink just a little deeper into your resting space, feeling perfectly anchored to the ground even as the cosmos spins in complex overlapping circles high above. This breathtaking phase of partial eclipse ultimately provides the most dramatic visual contrast imaginable for backyard stargazers and professional astrophotographers alike. The brilliant, untouched sliver of remaining moonlight stands in sharp, dazzling defiance against the creeping ink-black void of the massive terrestrial umbra. This stark visual division effectively splits the familiar celestial sphere in two, pairing the blinding brilliance of direct sunlight with the absolute featureless depth of planetary darkness. The extreme lighting acts as a monumental sweeping spotlight, casting incredibly long, exaggerated shadows across the terminator line that beautifully highlight the moon's violent history. The profound depth and chaotic texture of the lunar craters are thrown into sharp, high-definition relief, offering a three-dimensional view rarely seen during a standard full moon. It is a fleeting, magical window that allows observers to peer directly into the scarred, battered geology of our oldest orbital companion. As the final sliver of pure white light is slowly, inevitably consumed by the advancing arc of the umbra, the overwhelming visual contrast reaches its absolute peak. The stage is beautifully, dramatically set for the total plunge into darkness, preparing the eye for the bizarre, colourful phenomena that wait deep within the planetary shadow. The edge of darkness has completed its sweeping journey, and the true, deep mystery of the celestial alignment is finally ready to begin. As this deep mystery of the celestial alignment is finally ready to begin, a profound counterintuitive revelation unfolds across the darkened heavens above. Surprisingly, the overarching cosmos does not render the fully obscured satellite completely black, despite it being entirely swallowed by the deepest core of the umbra. Instead of a featureless void, a faint ethereal illumination persistently clings to the rugged topography, defying the absolute deprivation of direct solar energy. The expectation of total invisibility is a perfectly logical assumption when witnessing a massive solid object intercept the only source of nearby starlight. Yet, the sprawling planetary darkness proves to be beautifully imperfect, fundamentally tainted by an unexpected and mesmerizing optical trick played by the gaseous envelope surrounding our world. This stubborn, ghostly persistence of light creates an eerie, deeply surreal atmosphere that utterly captivates anyone staring upward into the quiet night. Shadows stretching across the lunar valleys are deep, but they are not the absolute crushing blackness of deep space. A soft, dim radiance continues to wash over the sprawling impact basins, revealing the scarred geology in a completely new, muted context. This gentle glow provides a magnificent visual bridge, allowing observers to continue tracking the celestial body even when it has technically been banished from the sun's direct grace. Bypassing the expected slate grey or pitch black, the battered lunar plains are instead bathed in a ghostly coppery red luminosity that defies common astronomical intuition. This intense, rusty coloration has earned this specific astronomical phase the dramatic, highly evocative moniker of the blood moon phenomenon across countless human generations. It is a hue that feels fundamentally unnatural when suspended in the typically cool, silver-toned and stark white environment of the traditional night sky. The sheer intensity of this crimson saturation can vary wildly from hour to hour, sometimes manifesting as a bruised, deep purple, and other times flaring into a vivid, glowing copper. To behold this colour painted so smoothly across the familiar cratered face is to witness a profound alchemy of light and shadow in the vacuum. It momentarily transforms a dead, frozen rock into a magnificent, glowing ember that seems to radiate its own internal mysterious heat. The visual weight of this ruby sphere hanging silently in the infinite void possesses an undeniably hypnotic, almost talismanic power over those who pause to watch. It demands absolute attention, entirely disrupting the normal, comforting aesthetics of the nocturnal canopy with its aggressive rusted brilliance. This dramatic shift in the colour palette serves as a loud visual announcement that the normal rules of planetary illumination have been temporarily suspended. This majestic crimson glow is definitely not generated by the satellite itself, but is actually the combined simultaneous projection of every dawn and dusk currently occurring on our home planet. If you could conceptually transport yourself to the centre of the umbra and look back, you would see a continuous, unbroken ring of fiery twilight perfectly encircling the globe. Every single sunrise and sunset unfolding across terrestrial oceans, sprawling deserts and dense jungles is gathered together and cast outward into the infinite dark. Rosy light of morning touching a distant mountain range and the fading golden twilight over an expansive ocean are simultaneously beamed across the silent void. This means the rusted hue illuminating the alien dust is an active composite reflection of our own world's collective twilight moments projected onto a massive screen. It is a stunning, deeply poetic realization that the shadowed satellite is being kept visible solely by the dying and birthing light of our planetary days. The sheer romance of this physical reality elevates the eclipse from a simple shadow play into a magnificent interconnected display of cosmic mirrors. We are literally watching the scattered light of our own skies, travelling through the vacuum to gently kiss the surface of another world. Allow your jaw to relax slightly, letting go of unneeded tension as you visualise this grand, unbroken ring of continuous twilight projecting deep into space. To achieve this magnificent projection, the remarkably thin layer of breathable gases clinging to our home acts as a colossal, planetary-scale lens. As white, unfiltered starlight passes rapidly through this curved atmospheric bubble, the shorter, cooler blue wavelengths are violently scattered away into the daytime sky below. Meanwhile, the longer, warmer red wavelengths are gently bent inward, refracting precisely around the curvature of the globe and directly into the heart of the shadow cone. This elegant physical mechanism, essentially functioning as a massive cosmic prism, is the exact same underlying process that paints a local evening sky with brilliant shades of tangerine and violet. By funneling these surviving ruby photons into the deepest part of the advancing umbra, the atmosphere essentially floods the darkened zone with filtered, highly redirected illumination. The very air we breathe actively sculpts the harsh, punishing radiation of our local star, transforming it into a soft, coloured spotlight aimed directly at our orbiting companion. The mathematics governing this refraction are incredibly precise, ensuring that the bent light perfectly converges just as it reaches the orbital path of the silver sphere. It is a breathtaking demonstration of fluid dynamics and optical physics operating on a scale so grand it defies conventional human comprehension. If the terrestrial sphere possessed no gaseous envelope whatsoever, this breathtaking phase of the eclipse simply would never occur, altering the entire nature of the event. Stripped of a swirling atmosphere to delicately bend and filter the incoming starlight, our rocky, barren globe would cast an utterly solid, brutally sharp shadow entirely devoid of colour. The moon would glide silently into the waiting umbra and simply vanish into absolute invisibility, instantly swallowed by a perfect, impenetrable pitch-black void. Without the crucial life-giving presence of atmospheric gases, the alignment would be a terrifying visual erasure rather than a magnificent celebrated display of celestial colour. There would be no coppery glow, no sweeping ring of projected twilights, only a terrifying gaping hole in the starry tapestry where a familiar comforting sphere used to proudly reside. This chilling thought experiment underscores how deeply the visual poetry of the heavens relies on the specific, fragile chemistry of the air blanketing our world. The realization that our breathable air is the sole artist responsible for painting the darkened moon adds a profound layer of appreciation to the spectacle. We are not just watching celestial mechanics, but actively witnessing the optical signature of a vibrant, life-supporting atmosphere interacting with the cold vacuum of space. When a massive, unexpected eruption heavily seeds the upper stratosphere with thick, sulphurous aerosols, the sheer volume of blocked light drastically alters the resulting lunar projection. Alternatively, intense seasons of heavy global wildfires can inject massive amounts of fine soot high into the air, further dampening and tinting the refracted bending beams. Thus, the exact coloration of the shadowed satellite serves as a distant, massive mirror perfectly reflecting the current ecological and geological state of our own home. Scientists can literally gauge the clarity of the global atmosphere simply by measuring the precise color temperature of the rusted light, illuminating the distant craters. It is a bizarre, beautiful feedback loop where the violent, chaotic events occurring on the ground indirectly paint the surface of a world orbiting hundreds of thousands of miles away. Encountering a highly polluted or heavily ash-filled atmospheric ring will usually result in an eclipse that appears incredibly dark brown, or even almost entirely black. During these rare, heavily obscured astronomical events, the massive umbra becomes nearly opaque, choking off the delicate red wavelengths and rendering the lunar surface barely detectable against the background stars. Historical records indicate that following cataclysmic terrestrial eruptions, early observers were frequently terrified when the glowing orb vanished almost entirely from their sight without a trace. This profound, overwhelming darkening creates a deeply somber, oppressive atmosphere, suddenly transforming a vibrant celestial event into a quiet, ghostly, and deeply unsettling absence. The familiar, comforting, rusty glow is entirely replaced by a smudge of thick charcoal, an eerie reminder of how easily the delicate balance of passing light can be disrupted. It perfectly represents the darkest possible manifestation of the shadow, an eclipse heavily smothered and choked by the very dust and smoke of the world casting it. Observing one of these excessively dark eclipses can trigger a primal sense of unease, as the reassuring beacon of the night sky seems to have been permanently extinguished. The loss of the crimson glow leaves the heavens feeling unusually empty, highlighting the fragility of the cosmic light show we often take for granted. Take a slow, intentional breath, feeling the steady rise and fall of your chest as the darkened heavens continue their silent, majestic rotation. Conversely, remarkably clear skies along the global terminator line allow an absolute maximum amount of refracted starlight to boldly pierce through the planetary darkness. When the atmospheric ring is largely free of heavy particulates, the resulting optical projection produces a brilliant, bright orange lunar display that seems to actively radiate boundless energy. Under these pristine, highly transparent conditions, the fully eclipsed sphere can look almost exactly like a freshly stoked ember or a luminous, highly polished copper coin. The sheer vibrancy of this unobstructed light is truly astonishing, casting a warm, undeniable glow that can gently illuminate a quiet terrestrial landscape with an eerie twilight. Observers fortunate enough to witness a highly transparent atmospheric alignment often describe the resulting colour as intensely pure, completely devoid of the muddy brown tones caused by heavy aerosols. This brilliant iteration of the phenomenon represents a perfect, unobstructed optical pathway, an ideal translation of twilight across an immense expanse of empty vacuum. The crisp, neon-like quality of this orange projection makes the cratered surface pop with startling clarity, rewarding those who stay awake to witness the peak of totality. It is the absolute zenith of the atmospheric lens effect, a flawless cosmic performance unhindered by the smog or dust of the world below. While bathed in this rusty, heavily filtered illumination, seasoned stargazers frequently note that the coloured moon suddenly appears almost startlingly, undeniably spherical in volume. During its normal, intensely bright full phase, the complete lack of visible shadows flattens the cratered surface into a glaring, untextured white disk, glued firmly to the sky. However, the soft, low-intensity umbral lighting fundamentally alters this flawed optical perception, beautifully revealing the subtle curvature and massive volume of the rocky globe. The darkened, muted edges seem to naturally recede into the cosmic background, while the slightly brighter centre subtly bulges forward toward the observer. This creates a powerful, inescapable optical illusion of depth, making it genuinely look like a heavy, textured bowling ball suspended miraculously in the infinite void. It ceases to be a flat painting on the ceiling of the night and suddenly transforms into an unmoored globe drifting through a tangible sea of stars. This sudden acquisition of immense depth makes the distant rock feel incredibly close, a heavy, physical object looming silently just beyond our immediate reach. The rusty glow strips away the blinding glare that normally hides its true shape, offering a rare, visceral understanding of its place as a massive floating companion. Attempting to properly photograph this deeply shadowed stage requires highly specialized techniques, most notably utilizing significantly longer camera exposures to gather the incredibly sparse photons. Because the total amount of light striking the lunar canvas is a microscopic fraction of its usual brilliance, standard visual capture methods result in a completely black, unusable image. The mechanical sensors must be intentionally left open for extended periods, patiently collecting the faint crimson droplets of atmospheric projection over seconds or even minutes. This prolonged, dedicated gathering of light eventually reveals a stunning, intensely saturated image that frequently surpasses the limited sensitivity of the naked human eye. The resulting long exposure photographs beautifully expose the profound depth of colour, hiding stealthily within the darkness, turning a subtle, dusky observation into a vibrant, fiery, and highly detailed portrait. It is a magnificent triumph of modern optics, mechanically amplifying the quiet, whispered light of countless distant sunsets into a permanent, breathtaking visual record. By stretching the boundaries of capturing time, these images freeze the slow, majestic dance of the cosmos, highlighting the delicate interplay between planetary shadow and refracted starlight. They serve as a lasting testament to the hidden, vibrant colours that constantly swirl through the darkest, quietest corners of our local solar system. Deep within those quietest corners of our local solar system, the phase of true totality only arrives when the satellite is completely and utterly submerged within the most profound heart of our planet's shadow. This core, known as the umbra, represents a sacred sanctuary of darkness, where the direct, unyielding glare of our parent star is effectively exiled by the massive physical bulk of the world we call home. It is a moment of total cosmic surrender, a time when the familiar, rugged lunar landscape is finally and fully cradled by the deep, tapering terrestrial void that always follows in our wake. Passing into this inner sanctum, the moon experiences an absolute deprivation of raw solar energy that it has not felt for the entirety of its month-long journey around us. The transition marks the end of the partial phases and the beginning of a deep, immersive stillness, where the very air of our world becomes the only source of light for the cratered plains. This total submersion is the rare prerequisite for the grand display of colours we have previously explored, turning a simple shadow into a complex glowing theatre of physics. As the last sliver of white light vanishes, the moon appears to sink into the background of the universe itself, becoming one with the deep velvet of the night. This immersion is a physical manifestation of a perfect three-dimensional geometric puzzle being solved by the relentless motion of the spheres. It is the absolute zenith of the event, the point where the shadow is at its thickest, and the connection between our two worlds is at its most intimate. Surprisingly, this state of absolute celestial immersion requires an alignment of such staggering crystalline precision that mathematicians have granted it the rhythmic name of syzygy. This rare configuration demands that the centres of three colossal spheres, the blazing sun, our rotating world and the distant moon, draw themselves into a singular, mathematically perfect straight line across the freezing vacuum. It is as if the universe, for a few brief moments, intentionally abandons its typical chaotic motion to perform a flawless linear act of geometric alignment that spans nearly 100 million miles. This alignment is the invisible skeleton upon which the entire drama of the eclipse is built, a temporary bridge of shadow connecting three disparate bodies in space. Without this near-perfect linearity, the moon would simply bypass the umbra, remaining a bright and unbothered silver orb in the night sky. Syzygy represents the moment when the chaos of individual orbits is harmonized into a single, unified vector of darkness, proving the underlying order of the solar system. Observing this from the ground, we are witnessing the physical result of an astronomical coincidence that exists on a scale far beyond our daily experience. It is a reminder that even in the vastness of space, things can align with the precision of a master-crafted timepiece, bringing distant worlds into a direct shared experience. This linear perfection is the fundamental engine of the eclipse, the silent force that allows a planetary shadow to find its mark with such unerring accuracy. This exact alignment remains a rare and precious geometric occurrence, primarily because the lunar path is subtly inclined by about 5 degrees relative to our own planetary orbit. This seemingly minor tilt acts as a persistent celestial gatekeeper, ensuring that the silver sphere usually dances safely just beyond the reach of the waiting terrestrial shadow. If the moon orbited in the exact same plane as the terrestrial sphere, we would be treated to the dramatic sight of a total eclipse every single month of every single year. Instead, this 5-degree deviation creates a rhythmic game of near misses, where the moon most often sails high above or deep below the tapering cone of darkness that we cast behind us. This inclination is a relic of the violent and chaotic birth of the Earth-Moon system, a permanent tilt that defines the frequency of our celestial encounters. It turns every total eclipse into a special event, a rare occasion where the moon's wandering path finally crosses the invisible line of the ecliptic at the exact moment it reaches full illumination. The rarity granted by this tilt is what imbues the eclipse with its profound sense of mystery and cultural importance. We are forced to wait for those fleeting moments when the tilting orbits finally sync up, a cosmic alignment that feels like a rare alignment of the stars themselves. This 5-degree gap is the reason why a total lunar eclipse is never a common or mundane sight, but rather a celebrated milestone in the ongoing calendar of the heavens. Notice how the moon, during the vast majority of its monthly cycles, passes harmlessly through the sun-drenched regions either above or below the invisible pillar of terrestrial darkness. It sails through the illuminated void, entirely unaware of the tapering umbra that our planet trails like a silent dark ghost through the local neighbourhood. This consistent near miss is the standard, comforting rhythm of the heavens, making the occasional direct hit feel like a deliberate, breathtaking disruption of the cosmic status quo. Space is so unimaginably vast that two objects and a shadow rarely find themselves in the same coordinate at the same time. The shadow of the world is like the eye of a needle, and the moon is a high-speed traveller that only occasionally threads that needle during its endless circling journey. These misses are essential to the stability of our night sky, ensuring that we usually enjoy the full, unobstructed brilliance of the silver moon as it reflects the pure white light of the sun. If we were to look closer at the clocks of the cosmos, we would find that the duration of this total immersion varies wildly, stretching from a few fleeting heartbeats to nearly 2 full hours of deep alignment. This temporal flexibility depends entirely on the precise speed of the moon and its exact distance from the centre of the umbral core at that specific moment. Because the lunar orbit is an ellipse rather than a perfect circle, the moon's distance from the terrestrial world, and thus its speed, changes as it travels through the month. Getty Images. When the moon is at its furthest point and moving at its slowest pace, it can linger within the cooling embrace of the shadow for a remarkably long time. These long-form eclipses allow for a deep, meditative observation of the changing colours, as the atmospheric light has ample time to paint the lunar landscape in exquisite detail. Conversely, a faster-moving moon might only graze the shadow, offering a brief and frantic glimpse of the crimson glow before returning to its usual silver brilliance. This variation in time adds a layer of unique personality to every eclipse, as some feel like a momentary blink while others feel like a lingering cosmic dream. The duration is a direct consequence of the physical distance between our worlds, a mathematical output of the laws of gravity that have governed the solar system since its inception. To watch a long eclipse is to witness the moon taking its time, slowly wading through the darkness of our world with a majestic, unhurried grace. A central eclipse, where the lunar disk traverses the absolute geographic centre of the shadow's cross-section, represents the absolute pinnacle of this astronomical experience. Passing through this densest, most concentrated region of the umbra yields the longest and most profoundly dark period of totality possible in our current era. It is a journey through the very epicentre of our world's absence, where the copper light reaches its most saturated, sombre and mesmerising intensities. In this central path, the moon is equidistant from all points of the atmospheric ring, receiving a perfectly balanced and intense wash of refracted sunset light. This symmetry creates an incredibly even distribution of colour across the lunar seas, making the entire sphere glow with a terrifyingly beautiful, uniform radiance. Most eclipses are non-central, where the moon merely clips the upper or lower half of the shadow, resulting in a lopsided colouring that leaves one edge significantly brighter than the other. The central eclipse is the bullseye of the solar system, a moment of perfect geometric convergence that happens only a few times in a typical lifetime. It is during these specific alignments that the moon truly looks like a three-dimensional ember, centred perfectly within the dark heart of our world's silhouette. This central passage is the deepest possible immersion in the terrestrial night, a rare and profound encounter with the absolute core of our planetary shadow. Vast invisible strings of gravity from the sun and the distant outer planets are perpetually shifting the exact timing and path of these alignments. These subtle, planetary nudges ensure that no two paths through the shadow are ever perfectly replicated, introducing a beautiful element of organic variation into the cold celestial clockwork. Even though Jupiter and Saturn are hundreds of millions of miles away, their immense mass exerts a silent influence that ripples through the lunar orbit, gently sculpting the trajectory of the upcoming darkness. This gravitational dance means that the moon is never in quite the same place twice, and the terrestrial shadow is constantly drifting in a complex multi-dimensional pattern. We like to think of the solar system as a rigid set of tracks, but it is actually a fluid and responsive web of interconnected pulls and pushes. These tugs can delay an eclipse by seconds or shift its path by miles, making the work of astronomers a constant exercise in high-precision calculation and adjustment. This structure of shifting alignments is remarkably governed by vast repeating mathematical patterns known as Saros cycles, which allow modern astronomers to predict eclipses with stunning accuracy centuries in advance. This cycle, which spans approximately 18 years and 11 days, is the result of the Sun, Earth, and Moon returning to nearly the same relative positions in space. By deciphering these intricate rhythms, we have transformed the eclipse from a terrifying and unpredictable omen into a celebrated global milestone that we can plan for with absolute certainty. The word Saros itself is a legacy of the ancient Chaldean astronomers, who first recognized that eclipses were not random events, but part of a larger, repeating song of the heavens. Today, our computers can run these cycles forward and backward through time, mapping out the shadows of the future with the same confidence that we map the geography of our own continents. It is a profound triumph of human pattern recognition, allowing us to find order in what once seemed like the chaotic whims of the gods. Prediction is a form of time travel, letting us stand in the shadow of an event that has not yet occurred and see the geometry of a world that is still decades away. This mathematical foresight is one of our species' greatest achievements, a bridge between the primal fear of the dark and the enlightened understanding of the clockwork cosmos. The Saros cycle is the fundamental rhythm of this foresight, the heartbeat of celestial prediction that keeps the universe feeling accessible and known. Each distinct Saros series persists for well over a millennium, functioning as a sprawling family of eclipses that share deeply related physical and geometric characteristics. Over several centuries, these related events drift slowly across the lunar disk, starting as shallow penumbral grazes and eventually maturing into deep central totalities before fading away into history. To track a single series is to witness a slow-motion, cosmic genealogy that links the observations of our ancient ancestors with the digital records of generations yet to be born. A series might produce 70 or more eclipses over its 1200-year lifespan, each one a slightly evolved version of the one that came 18 years before. This family tree of shadows reveals the subtle, long-term changes in the lunar orbit that are invisible over a single human lifetime. It shows us that the universe operates on scales of time that dwarf our civilizations, yet we have found a way to categorize and understand these millennial rhythms. Witnessing an eclipse today is like meeting a member of a very old and prestigious family, one whose lineage stretches back to the era of the Vikings and will continue long after our current cities have changed. Each member of the series carries the same genetic markers of duration and path, a repeating theme in the ongoing symphony of the solar system. This sense of continuity provides a profound connection to the past and the future, anchoring our brief lives in the vast unfolding history of the spheres. Tracking these geometric cycles has represented a profound and unrelenting intellectual endeavour across countless ancient and modern civilizations throughout our shared human history. From the monumental stone circles of the Neolithic era to the high-speed supercomputers of the current day, the drive to understand the eclipse has mirrored our own evolution as a conscious species. This persistent quest for celestial order has transformed our relationship with the night sky, turning a source of primal, paralyzing fear into a fountain of profound scientific and philosophical wonder. Every culture that has looked upward has contributed a verse to this story, whether through the complex calendars of the Maya or the precise trigonometry of the Greeks. We have used the moon's darkening as a laboratory, a clock and a mirror, finding within its shadow the keys to understanding our own place in the vastness of the void. This endeavour is a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be intimidated by the unknown, choosing instead to measure, calculate, and ultimately celebrate the mysteries of the dark. As you reflect on this long journey of human thought, feel a wave of relaxation spread from the top of your head all the way down to your toes. Your mind is quiet and clear, much like the night sky during the deepest part of totality, when the stars finally reveal their true depth. Every muscle in your body is now completely at ease, fully supported by the ground beneath you as you drift into a state of perfect, peaceful awareness within the vast architecture of the cosmos. Within this vast architecture of the cosmos, the serene visual of the crimson sphere belies a hidden, turbulent reality occurring on its jagged surface. Far beneath the gentle, filtered light of the terrestrial atmosphere, the physical lunar landscape is actively undergoing a violent and sudden thermal shock. The abrupt disappearance of the sun's direct radiant heat triggers a localized environmental crisis that ripples across the ancient airless plains. While the observers on the ground see a peaceful transition of colors, the rocks of the moon are being subjected to a brutal physical test. This shock represents the absolute collapse of a world's equilibrium, where the energy that has sustained the surface for weeks is withdrawn in a matter of heartbeats. The massive impact basins, once saturated with solar fire, are suddenly abandoned to the cold, hungry vacuum of space. It is a transition so severe that it alters the very nature of the minerals that comprise the lunar crust, forcing them into a state of rapid and unforgiving stress. This internal turmoil is a hidden companion to the external beauty of the eclipse, reminding us that every celestial wonder has a physical price. If we were to look closer at the thermal profile of the lunar equator, the sheer scale of this transition becomes staggering to the human imagination. In the long moments before the shadow arrived, the surface was baking under a relentless water-boiling heat of 250 degrees. Now, as the darkness takes hold, the temperature plummets with terrifying speed, crashing toward a soul-chilling -200 degrees. This temperature differential is significantly greater than the difference between a scorching desert and the heart of an Arctic winter. The minerals of the moon, having absorbed the sun's energy for 14 straight days of lunar day, find themselves suddenly exposed to the absolute zero of the surrounding void. This drop is not a slow cooling, but a catastrophic loss of infrared energy that leaves the ground brittle and frozen. Every grain of regolith and every towering mountain peak is gripped by this invisible frost, which descends like a silent executioner across the landscape. The sheer range of this swing highlights the fragility of any environment that lacks the tempering influence of a protective atmosphere. It is a world of extremes, where the presence of a shadow is enough to transform a desert into a cryogenic wasteland in an instant. Surprisingly, this massive and devastating swing in energy occurs in the fleeting span of less than one single hour. This represents a sheer, vertical drop in temperature that is virtually unmatched in any natural planetary environment found within our solar neighbourhood. On our homeworld, the presence of air and water buffers the transition of night, but on the moon, the descent into freezing is absolute and immediate. The speed of this change creates a unique form of environmental stress, where the physical structure of the moon is given no time to adapt to its new conditions. It is as if the very breath of the sun has been held, leaving the world to wither in the resulting icy silence. This rapid time frame is a direct result of the lack of thermal mass in the lunar vacuum, where heat has no medium to travel through other than direct radiation. To witness such a change on our homeworld would require an apocalypse, yet it is a recurring and predictable part of the moon's relationship with our shadow. The efficiency of the vacuum at stripping away heat is displayed here with brutal, mathematical clarity. Every second that the moon remains within the deep umbra, the cold bites deeper into the heart of the ancient airless rock. This sudden, intense cold causes the very molecules of the rocky lunar crust to contract with an aggressive, microscopic violence. As the basaltic plains and highlands tighten under the grip of the freeze, the physical strain occasionally triggers small and entirely silent moonquakes. These tremors are the soundless cries of a world adjusting to the weight of the dark, vibrating through the bedrock in the absolute stillness of the vacuum. Without the dampening effect of an atmosphere, These vibrations travel with remarkable efficiency through the lunar interior, whispering secrets of the crust's composition. Notice the weight of your own limbs as they rest comfortably against your chair or bed, feeling the deep security of a world that does not tremble beneath you. On the moon, the very ground is shifting in response to the light, a physical manifestation of the power that a simple shadow can exert over a planetary body. These moonquakes are the only sounds of the eclipse, yet they are heard by no one, occurring in a medium where air cannot carry a single note. They are the rhythmic, stuttering heartbeats of a frozen satellite, reacting to the sudden withdrawal of its only source of warmth. This geological restlessness is a direct byproduct of the thermal shock, a structural memory of the sun's absence that echoes through the deep lunar bedrock. The fundamental reason for this dramatic instability lies in the moon's total lack of a protective, heat-trapping atmosphere. Without a blanket of gas to store the sun's warmth, the lunar surface remains a passive participant in the cosmic exchange of energy, relying entirely on constant direct sunlight for its survival. The moment that umbilical cord of light is severed by our shadow, the heat simply evaporates into the infinite hungry void of space. This reliance on the sun is a universal theme, but on the moon, it is stripped of all nuance and complexity. It serves as a hauntingly beautiful example of what happens to a world when it loses its protective shroud and is left alone with the stars. The eclipse is the ultimate proof of this vulnerability, a brief window into the harsh, unmediated reality of space. Even the sophisticated robotic explorers currently orbiting the moon find themselves in a desperate struggle against this encroaching shadow. These spacecraft must immediately pivot their operations, relying solely on internal battery power and specialized built-in heaters to prevent their delicate electronics from shattering in the deep freeze. The eclipse is not just a visual wonder for humanity, but a high-stakes test of our most advanced engineering, demanding that we carry our own warmth into the heart of the darkness. Notice the soft, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest, a natural and effortless exchange of life that continues without a single battery or switch. For a machine on the moon, every moment within the umbra is a calculated battle for survival, where a single failure in a heating circuit could result in permanent frozen silence. The internal systems of these probes hum with a quiet intensity, burning through precious energy to maintain the precarious balance of their internal climate. They are tiny sparks of human ingenuity surrounded by a landscape that is rapidly becoming as cold as the space between the stars. This technological tension adds a layer of human drama to the celestial alignment, as we watch our creations brave the thermal shock alongside the ancient lunar rocks. It is a reminder that wherever we go, we must bring the protection that our home planet provides so freely. Deep within the digital eyes of infrared telescopes, the cooling moon reveals a hidden map of glowing thermal hotspots that remain invisible to the naked eye. These radiant islands are typically younger, fresher impact craters that have not yet been pulverized into the fine insulating dust of the older plains. Because these craters consist of larger solid boulders, they possess a higher thermal inertia, stubbornly holding on to the day's heat long after the surrounding landscape has frozen solid. If we were to look closer, we would see these craters shining like bright embers against the cooling, dark background of the lunar seas. They are the thermal fingerprints of the moon's violent history, markers of the massive collisions that have shaped its face over billions of years. To an infrared camera, the moon during an eclipse looks like a dying coal, with hot spots of energy still glowing beneath the surface. These areas are the last holdouts against the creeping freeze, refusing to surrender their heat to the vacuum until the very last moment. They provide a stunning contrast to the otherwise uniform darkness, highlighting the geological diversity that is often hidden by the brilliance of a full moon. This thermal signature is a silent record of age and composition, written in the language of heat. To the scientists watching from Earth, these isolated thermal anomalies provide crucial, glowing clues about the specific composition and age of different lunar regions. By measuring exactly how fast a particular crater cools, researchers can determine the size and density of the rocks that comprise its rugged rim. The eclipse effectively acts as a global scan, stripping away the uniform light of day to reveal the structural secrets hidden within the moon's ancient battered crust. This data is invaluable for mapping the resources of the moon and understanding the processes that have refined its minerals over eons. Feel the natural warmth of your own skin, a steady and reliable heat that requires no effort from your mind to maintain, even as the world outside changes. This same heat is what astronomers are tracking on the moon, using the thermal decay of the rocks to peer into the heart of the satellite. It allows us to distinguish between soft, powdery dust and hard, unyielding bedrock without ever touching the surface. Each hotspot tells a story of a specific moment in time, a snapshot of an impact that changed the course of the moon's evolution. Through the lens of the eclipse, the moon becomes a giant thermal puzzle, with each piece offering a new insight into our neighbour's deep and mysterious past. This structure of rapid freezing is surprisingly shallow, thanks to the unique physical properties of the fine lunar dust, or regolith, that blankets the surface. Because this pulverized rock is a terrible conductor of heat, the intense thermal shock of the eclipse only penetrates the topmost few inches of the lunar soil. This layer of cosmic dust acts as a primitive but effective insulator, shielding the deeper geological layers from the sudden, aggressive swings of the environment above. It is a paradox of the lunar world. The very dust that makes the surface so vulnerable to heat also protects the interior from the cold. Below this thin, frozen crust, the ancient thermal memories of the moon remain largely intact, shielded from the celestial drama playing out overhead. The regolith is a porous, chaotic medium, consisting of microscopic shards of glass and rock that trap pockets of stillness between them. This prevents the freezing cold from seeping downward, ensuring that the heart of the moon remains largely indifferent to the temporary absence of the sun. It is a testament to the power of insulation, showing how a simple layer of dust can defy the extreme conditions of the vacuum. Even as the surface shatters under the cold, the world just beneath remains safe and undisturbed. If we were to dig just a single meter below the freezing surface, we would find a realm where the temperature remains completely constant and utterly undisturbed by the chaos of the eclipse. In this subterranean silence, the moon is a world of eternal, unchanging thermal stability, oblivious to the light and shadow dancing across its face. It is a hidden sanctuary of equilibrium, proving that even in the most extreme environments, a sense of deep, unshakable peace can be found just beneath the surface. This layer of constant temperature is a reminder of the moon's internal resilience, a place where the fluctuations of the solar system no longer hold any power. While the surface is a theatre of violent change and thermal shock, the core remains a bastion of stillness. Let your awareness drift into that same sense of unshakable peace, feeling the quiet, steady rhythm of your breath as you sink into a state of total, supported relaxation. You're like the heart of the moon, secure and constant regardless of the shadows that may pass overhead. This final realization of the eclipse brings the journey back to a center of quiet strength, where the cold cannot reach and the darkness cannot disturb. It is the ultimate resting place for our curiosity, a reminder that peace is often found in the depths, away from the flickering lights of the surface. Deep within the shadows of our collective memory, long before the light of science pierced the dark, the flickering lights of human civilization watched the heavens with a much more primal intensity. Throughout the vast expanse of early history, the sudden and inexplicable reddening of the silver sphere was rarely greeted with the calm curiosity we possess today. Instead, this celestial transformation was viewed through a heavy veil of cultural fear and deep-seated superstition that pulsed through the ancient world. As the familiar moon began to bleed into a rusted crimson, the people of the past felt the very foundation of their reality tremble. They did not see a predictable alignment of spheres, but rather a terrifying omen that suggested the natural order of the universe was being violently unravelled. This wasn't merely a visual curiosity, it was a visceral, spiritual crisis that demanded immediate and desperate attention from every soul standing beneath the copper glow. This psychological weight was so immense that it defined the very structure of many early societies. The moon was a reliable clock, a source of guidance and a divine presence, so its apparent death or corruption was seen as a personal threat to the survival of the tribe. This ancient anxiety serves as the starting point for our long journey toward understanding, reminding us of the time when the sky was a place of mystery and potential doom. Surprisingly, the diverse cultures of the ancient world often arrived at a remarkably similar and haunting conclusion when faced with the darkening sky. Many early civilizations interpreted the eclipse not as a shadow, but as a living, ravenous celestial beast, or a malevolent demon actively attempting to devour the moon. This shared mythology painted the heavens as a dangerous battlefield where the source of nighttime light was being systematically hunted and consumed by unseen, monstrous forces. In the minds of the observers, the red hue was not refracted sunlight, but the actual physical blood of their lunar protector being spilled across the stars. This terrifying imagery transformed the quiet night into a theatre of cosmic horror, where the survival of the moon hung in a precarious, bloody balance. Every moment the darkness deepened, the anxiety of the world below intensified, fueling a desperate need to intervene in a struggle that occurred far beyond the reach of human hands. This archetypal battle between a predator and the light is etched into the folklore of nearly every continent. It reveals a time when humanity felt small and vulnerable, projecting its own earthly struggles for survival onto the grand canvas of the constellations. The eating of the moon was a metaphor for the fragility of life itself, a reminder that even the most constant things in existence could be threatened by the shadows. The Inca people, perched high within the thin air of the Andes, traditionally believed that a gargantuan mythical jaguar was the true culprit behind the lunar disappearance. They watched with mounting dread as the predator's invisible teeth seemed to sink into the silver disk, causing the moon to bruise and bleed a deep earthen red. Fearing that the celestial cat would eventually descend to Earth to continue its feast upon mankind, the entire empire would erupt into a frantic rhythmic chaos of sound. To drive the beast away, they beat great drums, blew into piercing conch shells, and even struck their dogs to make them howl and bark at the sky. They believed that by creating an overwhelming wall of terrestrial noise, they could startle the jaguar and force it to relinquish its grip on the bruised moon. This intense, sensory barrage served as a desperate bridge between the frightened inhabitants of the mountains and the silent crimson struggle unfolding in the high vacuum above. In the ancient cradles of Mesopotamia, the stakes of the eclipse were tied directly to the very lifeblood of the state and its sovereign. Astronomers there were so skilled at observing the lunar cycles that they could often sense when a period of cosmic darkness was imminent. Believing that any misfortune cast upon the moon would inevitably fall upon the king, the court would engage in a bizarre and elaborate ritual of celestial deception. They would install a temporary substitute ruler, often a commoner or a prisoner, to sit upon the throne and absorb whatever perceived malice or curse the heavens were raining down. While the real king hid in the shadows of the palace, the proxy king would be treated with royal honours for the duration of the eclipse, essentially acting as a human lightning rod for celestial wrath. Once the moon returned to its rightful silver glow and the danger had passed, the substitute would often be quietly removed, leaving the true monarch to resume his reign, unscathed by the cosmic transition. This political theatre highlights how deeply the movements of the planets influenced the actual governance of human societies. The eclipse was a moment where the boundaries between the divine and the terrestrial became blurred, requiring a sacrifice of status to protect the continuity of power. It was a calculated risk, a way for the powerful to navigate the unpredictable tides of a universe they were only beginning to map. This structure of prediction and superstition took a remarkably sharp, manipulative turn during the famous voyages of Christopher Columbus to the shores of Jamaica. Stranded with a starving crew and facing a breakdown in relations with the indigenous Arawak people, the explorer turned to a detailed astronomical almanac he had brought from Europe. Realizing that a total lunar eclipse was approaching, he claimed to the local leaders that his god was angry at their refusal to provide supplies and would soon take away the moon as a sign of his power. When the predicted darkness actually began to swallow the sky and the moon turned a terrifying blood red, the panicked islanders pleaded with him to restore the light. Columbus retreated to his cabin, pretending to pray while actually timing the duration of totality with an hourglass, and emerged only when the moon was about to exit the shadow. By exploiting a predictable geometric event to simulate divine wrath, he secured the survival of his expedition through a masterful, if cynical, use of celestial knowledge. This historical anecdote serves as a bridge between the era of pure superstition and the era of scientific utility. It demonstrates how the ability to predict the shadows became a form of power, allowing those with knowledge to command the fear of those without it. The red moon was no longer just a monster. It was a tool, a mathematical certainty that could be wielded to change the course of human events on the ground. If we were to look closer at the traditions of ancient China, we would find a vibrant, percussive legacy centered around the legend of the Tiangu, or the heavenly dog. For centuries, the people believed this celestial canine was responsible for taking great missing bites out of the lunar sphere during its passage through the dark. This folklore turned the eclipse into a communal event of loud, explosive defiance, as the entire population worked in unison to save their light from the creature's jaws. To scare the Tiangu away, they clashed metal gongs, rang massive bells, and eventually utilized the invention of gunpowder to launch crackling fireworks into the night air. The sharp, rhythmic popping and brilliant flashes of light on the ground were intended to mirror the intensity of the struggle happening in the heavens. Even today, the modern Chinese word for eclipse remains shi, a term that literally translates to eat, preserving the ancient memory of the moon being consumed by a celestial predator. Notice the gentle weight of your shoulders as they sink away from your ears, finding a deep and effortless release in this moment of quiet. The fireworks have long since faded, and the heavenly dog has retreated into the stars, leaving the sky open and peaceful. Your body is heavy, relaxed, and perfectly at peace with the rhythms of the world around you. Surprisingly, the modern era has largely shed the paralyzing terror of our ancestors, choosing instead to view the phenomenon as a unique opportunity for peaceful meditation and inner reflection. In our contemporary world, where the mechanics of the shadow are well understood, the blood moon has transformed from a terrifying omen into a symbol of personal and global renewal. Many people now use the slow, rhythmic transition of the light as a focal point for mindfulness, allowing the cosmic stillness to guide them into a state of deep, quiet contemplation. This shift represents a fundamental rebranding of the eclipse, moving away from a time of communal noise toward a period of profound, solitary silence. Instead of drums and gongs, we now meet the crimson light with open hearts and quiet minds, seeking a connection with the larger universe that is grounded in awe rather than fear. It is a time for setting intentions and recognizing the cyclical nature of our lives, mirrored in the predictable return of the moon to its full, silver glory. By stripping away the fear, we have allowed the true beauty of the alignment to emerge. The eclipse becomes a mirror for our own inner transitions, a reminder that darkness is not an end, but a necessary phase in the process of becoming. We stand in the shadow not to hide, but to see the stars more clearly, embracing the quietude that the universe offers so generously. In contrast to the modern push for observation, the Navajo tradition continues to observe the celestial transition with a deeply respectful and private sense of stillness. They view the eclipse not as a show to be watched, but as a sacred and highly potent period of transformation, where the sun and moon are in a profound state of rebirth. Because of the intense power associated with this alignment, their teachings strictly advise families to remain indoors, stay awake, and maintain a respectful, reverent silence. During this time, food is not consumed, and normal daily activities are paused out of respect for the cosmic labour occurring in the heavens above. This practice is not rooted in a fear of demons, but in a sophisticated understanding of the moon's spiritual gravity and its role as a guardian of the natural order. By retreating into the quiet of their homes, they participate in the event through a state of internal discipline, honouring the rhythm of the spheres without the need for visual consumption. This perspective offers a profound alternative to the externalized celebrations of modern science. It reminds us that some mysteries are best met with a quiet heart and a still body, allowing the energy of the universe to pass through us without interference. The Navajo silence is a form of deep participation, a recognition that we are small parts of a much larger living system that deserves our highest respect. Islamic traditions across the globe encompass a specific and deeply beautiful ritual known as Salat al-Kusuf, a prolonged prayer performed continuously while the moon remains shadowed. This prayer is not a plea to end a disaster, but a humble acknowledgement of the supreme power and majestic order inherent in the Creator's universe. It is a rhythmic communal act of worship that begins the moment the eclipse starts and concludes only when the final sliver of darkness has passed. The practice emphasizes the idea that the sun and moon are merely signs of a greater cosmic plan, operating under laws that transcend human understanding or intervention. By gathering in mosques and homes to recite these long, melodic verses, the faithful find a sense of spiritual alignment that mirrors the physical syzygy occurring in the sky. This tradition transforms the hours of totality into a meditative journey of sound and devotion, filling the night with a different kind of human echo, one of praise and profound wonder. Let your breath flow like a gentle returning tide, carrying away any lingering thoughts as you embrace the deep peace of the present. The words of the prayer are soft and distant, a hum that vibrates through the very air you breathe. You're held in a state of grace, surrounded by a universe that is both vast and intimately known. Ultimately, these shifting cultural perspectives across the millennia effectively trace the long and winding path of our own human evolution. We've travelled from a place of primal, paralysing fear of the unknown to a stage where we can collectively celebrate the magnificent, predictable clockwork of the cosmos. The eclipse has served as a constant throughout our history, a recurring mirror that reflects our changing relationship with the darkness and the light that defines our existence. Where our ancestors once saw beasts and demons, we now see the elegant intersection of gravity, light, and geometry. This transition from superstition to science has not stripped the event of its magic, but has instead deepened our appreciation for the sheer, breathtaking scale of the universe we inhabit. We no longer need to beat drums to save the moon. Instead, we stand in silent awe, recognizing that we are part of a beautifully synchronized dance that began long before us and will continue for ages to come. This evolution is a testament to the human spirit's ability to transform fear into understanding. Each eclipse is a milestone in our species' collective growth, a moment where we look at the red moon and see not a threat, but a stunningly beautiful realization of the laws of nature. We are the observers of the grand synthesis, the ones who give meaning to the shadows and find peace in the eternal mechanics of the stars. Reflecting on those eternal mechanics of the stars, we find ourselves shifting our perspective from the terrestrial ground to the desolate, silver-dusted plains of the lunar surface. To look back at the Earth from this alien vantage point during the height of totality would be an absolutely breathtaking visual experience, transcending any beauty witnessed from our home world. Instead of a distant glowing orb, the observer would see their entire home planet transformed into a magnificent dark silhouette that dominates the sky with a sense of overwhelming gravity and presence. The sheer scale of the Earth, appearing nearly 4 times larger than the moon does in our own sky, would create a visceral feeling of connection and awe as it hangs perfectly centered in the void. This rare perspective turns the familiar blue marble into a spectral giant, a celestial titan that actively eclipses the very sun that usually defines our days. Every crater and mountain ridge around the observer would be bathed in an alien shifting light, reflecting the unique geometry of 2 worlds locked in a temporary shadowed embrace. It is a moment where the observer ceases to be a distant witness and becomes a participant in the shadow itself, standing within the very darkness that the Earth projects across the vacuum. The silence of the moon would amplify the visual intensity, making the sight feel like a profound holy communion between the planet and its faithful orbiting companion. Surprisingly, the universe would present the Earth not as a vibrant, swirling sphere of clouds and oceans, but as a massive black void manifesting as a hole in the fabric of the heavens. During the peak of the alignment, the night side of our planet is turned toward the moon, meaning the sun is completely hidden behind the colossal dark bulk of the terrestrial globe. This creates a terrifyingly beautiful new Earth phase, where the planet becomes a featureless, light-consuming abyss that seems to suck the very stars from the surrounding sky. The absence of reflected sunlight turns the world into a phantom, a light-absorbing anchor that holds the centre of the lunar sky with an undeniable and heavy authority. If we were to look closer at this void, we would realise it is the most perfect darkness imaginable, far deeper than any night experienced under an atmospheric canopy. The sun's corona might flicker briefly at the edges, but the central mass remains a solid, impenetrable wall of planetary shadow. It is a sight that challenges our fundamental understanding of home, replacing the bright and welcoming planet with a stoic, light-shunning monument to the laws of orbital geometry. Standing in the path of this eclipse, one would feel the weight of the entire world's mass blocking out the primary engine of our solar system's light. This structure of absolute darkness is unexpectedly framed by a blindingly bright, unbroken ring of fiery red atmospheric light that encircles the entire dark terrestrial sphere. As the sun's direct path is blocked, the thin, fragile layer of gases hugging our planet begins to glow with an intensity that can only be described as a celestial halo. This ring is not a soft or flickering glow, but a sharp, neon-like circumference of copper and crimson that cuts through the blackness with surgical precision. It creates a stunning high-contrast border that separates the dark void of the Earth from the infinite star-studded vacuum that stretches out beyond it. Notice the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest as you imagine this fiery halo, feeling your body grow heavier and more supported by the ground beneath you. The tension in your shoulders begins to dissolve as you visualize the steady, unmoving brilliance of that atmospheric ring hanging in the silent sky. Your mind settles into a state of deep, effortless focus, mirroring the perfect stillness of a world that is millions of miles away. The light from that distant ring is constant and reliable, a beacon of colour in a realm of absolute shadow. If we were to look closer at the true nature of this glowing halo, we would realise it is literally the collective light of every single sunrise and sunset happening on Earth at that exact moment. Every dawn breaking over the Atlantic and every dusk settling over the Pacific is condensed into this one singular luminous thread that wraps around the globe. The fiery orange of a Saharan morning and the deep violet of a Himalayan evening are gathered by the atmosphere and beamed outward in a magnificent planetary synthesis. It is a visual representation of the entire world's transition between day and night, summarized in a single glowing circle for the lunar observer to behold. This realization adds a profound layer of human and planetary connection to the visual spectacle, as the ring contains the light of every horizon currently being watched by people on the ground. The halo is a bridge of light that carries the energy of thousands of individual moments across the void, concentrating the beauty of an entire world into a solitary, radiant phenomenon. To witness this ring is to see the Earth breathing in light, filtering the sun's harshness into the soft, warm tones of a global twilight. It serves as a reminder that even in the deepest shadow, our planet is perpetually surrounded by a border of returning and departing light. Deep within the central mass of that dark terrestrial void, observers would easily see the faint artificial glow of human cities dotting the night side of the Earth like a web of fallen stars. Even as the sun is eclipsed, the electric pulse of our civilization remains visible, manifesting as delicate clusters and sprawling networks of light that trace the continents and coastlines. These glowing embers of human activity serve as a moving testament to our ongoing presence and the persistence of life even during a major celestial alignment. The sight of London, New York or Tokyo shining through the planetary darkness provides a comforting, familiar contrast to the cold and ancient landscapes of the lunar surface. These lights represent the collective effort of billions of individuals, a shimmering proof of our ability to push back against the natural darkness of the void. From the moon, the lights appear as a fragile golden embroidery on the velvet surface of the homeworld, revealing the geography of our history and our industry. They anchor the observer to the reality of the people below, turning the abstract black void into a living, inhabited place that is merely sleeping under the shadow. This perspective highlights the interconnectedness of our technology and the cosmos, showing how our artificial fires are visible even from the depths of a planetary eclipse. Picture the transformation of the surrounding lunar heavens as the stars, normally washed out by the overwhelming white glare of the lunar daylight, suddenly emerge in dazzling and sharp clarity. Because the moon has no atmosphere to scatter light, the arrival of the Earth's shadow causes the sky to shift instantaneously from a blindingly bright landscape into a pristine, deep-field observatory. Without the sun's interference, the celestial canopy is revealed in a way that is impossible to replicate from the surface of a planet with an air-filled sky. Every star becomes a needle-sharp point of light, appearing much brighter and more numerous than they ever do from the mountain peaks of Earth. This sudden unveiling of the universe creates a profound sense of depth, as the observer feels they are looking through a perfectly transparent window into the heart of the galaxy. The lack of atmospheric turbulence means these stars do not twinkle. They hang as steady, unwavering lanterns in a sky that has become a masterpiece of cosmic detail. The red-hued lunar ground beneath the observer's feet provides a surreal foreground for this stellar explosion, making the entire experience feel like a journey into the very core of a nebula. It is a moment of absolute visual purity, where the true scale of the stellar neighborhood is finally and fully laid bare. Notice the profound beauty of the Milky Way as it stretches elegantly across the heavens, manifesting as a brilliant band of cosmic dust that frames the dark, haloed Earth. With the sun's glare removed, the galactic core and its sprawling spiral arms become a dominant feature of the sky, painting a cloudy, luminous path through the darkness. The dark lanes of interstellar dust and the glowing clusters of millions of distant suns provide a magnificent grand synthesis that places our local planetary event within its true, vast context. The Earth, wrapped in its fiery red ring, looks like a precious jewel suspended against the grand architectural backdrop of our entire home galaxy. Allow your breathing to remain slow and deep, feeling the cool air entering your lungs as you visualize this vast, glowing river of stars arching over your head. Your muscles continue to relax, finding a sense of weightless peace as you drift within the immense, silent scale of the galactic neighborhood. The Earth is small and safe, held within the massive protective arms of the Milky Way, just as you are held by the steady surface beneath you. This cosmic alignment is a reminder of the order and beauty that permeate every level of the universe, from the local shadow of a planet to the distant rotation of a galaxy. This temporal luxury transforms the event from a quick spectacle into a profound, life-altering experience of celestial observation. It allows the mind to truly settle into the reality of being on another world, watching the clockwork of the solar system move with unhurried grace. The shadows stay long and the sky stays dark, providing a persistent sanctuary for reflection and scientific study that is unmatched anywhere else in our planetary system. To have an hour in the shadow of the Earth is to have a lifetime of perspective on the fragile and beautiful nature of our existence in the void. Currently, the archives of human exploration contain no record of such a sight, as astronauts have yet to physically stand on the lunar surface during a total lunar eclipse. During the historic Apollo missions, the timing and trajectories never aligned with these specific periods of shadow, making this a purely imagined human perspective for the time being. It remains one of the ultimate unrealized holy grails of space photography and observation, a visual masterpiece that is waiting for the next generation of explorers to claim it. We have seen the Earth rise and set from the moon, but we have never seen the Earth catch fire in the sun's shadow while standing in the lunar dust. This absence of direct human testimony only adds to the allure and mystery of the event, fueling the dreams of astronomers and artists who attempt to reconstruct the sight through mathematics and digital simulation. It represents a final frontier of local celestial beauty, a sight that is mathematically certain to exist, but remains hidden from human eyes for now. The future Artemis missions and the eventual establishment of a permanent lunar presence will undoubtedly bring the first eyewitness accounts of this magnificent display. Until then, it exists as a beautiful potential, a promise of wonder that the universe keeps tucked away in its predictable geometric cycles. In the coming decades, future lunar colonists will undoubtedly view these events as magnificent, regular highlights of their local celestial calendar, turning the eclipse into a foundational part of lunar culture. As human settlements grow within the sheltered lava tubes and glass domes of the moon, the night of the Crimson Earth will likely become a time of communal celebration and scientific gathering. Children born on the moon will grow up with the understanding that their home sky occasionally hosts a fiery, glowing ring that signals a temporary quiet peace across their airless world. The eclipse will shift from a rare terrestrial curiosity into a predictable and beloved local holiday, a time when the entire colony pauses to look up at the world that birthed them. Feel a final wave of deep, supported relaxation flow through your body, starting from your head and moving all the way down to your feet as this future vision settles in your mind. You are completely at rest, fully grounded in the present moment while your imagination explores the magnificent possibilities of the centuries to ahead. The universe is a place of endless discovery and enduring beauty, and you are a conscious part of its magnificent unfolding story. The light of the future is as certain as the return of the sun, and you can rest deeply in that knowledge, feeling safe, secure, and profoundly at peace. Deep within this state of profound peace, we recognize that the darkened moon is far more than a simple visual wonder. It serves as a massive, naturally occurring laboratory for the modern scientific mind. By utilizing the unique and precise geometry of the eclipse, researchers can bypass the many limitations of ground-based instruments to deeply study the most elusive layers of our planet's upper atmosphere. The moon, acting as a giant and passive reflector, catches the very essence of our world's gaseous shield and bounces those encoded signals back across the void for us to decipher. This represents a rare and fleeting moment when the entire solar system seems to collaborate, offering a perfect, controlled environment to observe the delicate chemistry that makes life possible. The silence of the night provides the perfect backdrop for this immense data collection, as light and shadow are analysed with the quiet hum of a precision instrument. Scientists look past the beauty of the crimson glow to see a complex spreadsheet of spectral data, a readout of the Earth's health that is projected onto a screen 250,000 miles away. It is a staggering thought that our neighbour in space is essentially acting as a giant mirror for our own atmospheric secrets, holding the light long enough for us to read its fine print. This process transforms the moon from a cold, dead rock into a vibrant interface between the terrestrial world and the infinite vacuum beyond. We're using the very darkness of our own shadow to illuminate the hidden truths of the air we breathe every day. Surprisingly, the filtered sunlight that survives its passage through our atmosphere and eventually strikes the lunar surface carries specific, encoded messages about global ozone levels. Scientists focus their instruments on the specific wavelengths of light that have been absorbed or scattered by the ozone layer, allowing them to map the thickness and health of this protective barrier on a planetary scale. This method provides a comprehensive, big-picture view that localized weather balloons or isolated satellites might miss, turning the crimson moon into a diagnostic readout for the world below. Every shade of red or orange we observe is a physical data point, a silent report on the state of the invisible shield that protects our biology from the sun's harshest ultraviolet rays. By measuring the intensity of the light at the very edge of the shadow, researchers can detect how the ozone layer fluctuates in response to seasonal changes or human influence. It is an elegant form of remote sensing that requires no rockets or fuel, relying instead on the natural clockwork of the spheres to provide the necessary alignment. This technique reveals the atmosphere as a dynamic, living organism, one that we can observe with stunning clarity from a distance. The moon captures the filtered light of millions of square miles of air, providing a global average that is essential for understanding our long-term climate trends. We are watching the breath of our planet being analysed by the stars, a process that is as scientifically rigorous as it is visually mesmerising. This distinct chemical signature of Earth's air is reflected right back to us, effectively acting as a distant cosmic mirror for the overall health of our planetary home. By catching the light that has grazed the extreme edges of our world, we can detect the presence of pollutants, moisture, and various trace gases that define the current state of our environment. It is a humbling realization that the beautiful colours we admire during totality are actually the physical evidence of our own world's complex and ever-shifting chemistry. The moon does not just reflect our light, it reflects our legacy, showing us the tangible impact of our presence within the very air we breathe. Scientists use these moments to check for the signatures of modern industry and the lingering effects of natural phenomena like forest fires or dust storms. This global reflection offers a perspective that is impossible to achieve from within the atmosphere itself, providing a rare look at the Earth as a single, unified system. Notice how your body continues to settle into a state of deep, effortless security, feeling the steady and reliable foundation of the world supporting you completely. Your breathing is a quiet, rhythmic part of the very atmosphere that the moon is currently reflecting with such precision. You are an integral part of this planetary health, a living presence within the vast and beautifully balanced system that the scientists are so carefully observing. The specific technique used to analyze this reflected light is formally known as transmission spectroscopy, the exact same sophisticated method astronomers use to search for atmospheric gases on distant exoplanets. When we look at a total lunar eclipse, we are performing the same investigative work that will eventually identify signs of life on a world orbiting a far-off star. By studying how sunlight is filtered through the Earth's atmosphere before hitting the moon, we refine the tools and algorithms needed to detect oxygen or water vapor trillions of miles away. This method allows us to treat our own planet as a known test case, ensuring that our instruments can correctly identify the molecules that signify a habitable world. We're essentially using the moon as a practice screen for the search for extraterrestrial life, calibrating our most advanced telescopes against the familiar backdrop of our own home. It is a profound overlap between the local and the infinite, where our own satellite helps us sharpen the eyes we use to scan the galaxies for a second Earth. If we were to look closer at the light curves generated during an eclipse, we would see the same patterns that appear when a distant planet transits its parent star. This makes the lunar eclipse a vital training ground for the next generation of space explorers and astrobiologists. We are learning how to read the light of other worlds by first mastering the light of our own, a journey that begins with a shadow and ends at the edge of the universe. If we were to look closer at this process, we would see that the eclipsed moon essentially serves as a perfect local practice target for identifying habitable worlds light years across the void. It provides a unique ground truth where we already know the exact composition of the atmosphere being measured, allowing us to test the accuracy of our spectral models against a known quantity. This celestial calibration is vital for ensuring that when we finally detect a biosignature on a distant Earth-like planet, our conclusion is based on a methodology tested thoroughly in our own neighbourhood. The moon stands as a silent, helpful tutor, offering its darkened face so that we might better understand the potential for life in the vast reaches of the cosmos. Astronomers use these datasets to filter out the noise of deep space, learning how to isolate the tiny, fragile signal of an atmosphere from the overwhelming glare of a star. Every minute the moon remains in the shadow is another minute of high-fidelity practice for the greatest search in human history. This connection transforms the eclipse into a forward-looking event, a bridge between our current understanding and the discoveries of the future. We're not just watching a shadow move, we're refining the map of the habitable universe. The crimson light on the lunar surface is the same light we hope to find elsewhere, a beacon of possibility that tells us we're looking in the right direction. Historical variations in the depth and darkness of the eclipse have surprisingly helped scientists track and date major volcanic eruptions across the centuries. Because the brightness of totality depends on the clarity of the Earth's stratosphere, a moon that appears unusually dark or extinguished often points to a massive injection of volcanic ash into the upper air. Researchers have compared ancient records of disappearing moons with ice core samples to create a definitive timeline of the planet's geological upheavals and their long-term effects on the climate. This makes the eclipse a historical record keeper, a celestial archive that has silently logged the fiery moods of our world's volcanoes long before we had global monitoring systems. The Danjon scale is used to categorize this darkness, allowing scientists to quantify the amount of debris floating in our air at any given point in history. By looking at the shadows of the past, we gain a deeper understanding of how our planet recovers from cataclysmic events, and how long the atmosphere remains clouded. Allow the quiet weight of this history to wash over you, feeling a sense of deep and unmoving peace as you realize the world has survived these many cycles of fire and shadow. Your own life is a part of this long and resilient timeline, held securely by a planet that has always found its way back to the light. The darkness of the past only serves to make the clarity of the present moment feel more precious and profound. The sharp, sudden drop in solar radiation during the event allows researchers to intensely study the behavior of Earth's ionosphere, the electrically charged layer of our upper atmosphere. Usually the constant bombardment of sunlight keeps this region in a state of high agitation, but the shadow of the eclipse provides a rare, temporary off switch to observe how it recovers and reacts in the dark. This helps scientists understand the complex interactions between the sun and our magnetic field, which are crucial for maintaining our global communications and satellite networks. It is a moment of atmospheric rest that reveals the hidden, electric architecture that hums silently above us every single day. By tracking how radio waves bounce off the ionosphere during an eclipse, we can map its density and its response to the sudden loss of energy. This data is vital for ensuring that our modern technological world remains connected and protected from the unpredictable moods of the sun. The shadow is not just a visual absence, it is a physical shield that lets us see the invisible currents of our world in a state of repose. We are observing the planet's electric pulse as it slows down, much like your own pulse as you drift deeper into this state of supported relaxation. Everything in the universe has a rhythm of activity and rest, and the eclipse provides a window into the quiet side of our atmospheric life. Lunar eclipses also provide a highly unique opportunity to measure the exact size and changing shape of the Earth's shadow as it stretches across the lunar distance. Although we often think of the shadow as a perfect static cone, it is actually a dynamic and slightly irregular volume that shifts in response to the Earth's rotation and its equatorial bulge. By precisely timing the moment the shadow touches various lunar craters, astronomers can map the true geometry of our world's darkness with incredible high-definition resolution. This data helps refine our understanding of the planet's physical dimensions and its orientation in space, turning the eclipse into a giant cosmic tape measure that spans the void. We can see how the shadow breathes as it interacts with the different layers of our atmosphere, revealing a shape that is slightly different with every occurrence. It is a delicate and precise measurement of our own planetary silhouette, a profile of our world drawn in the light of the sun. This structure of the shadow is a direct reflection of the Earth itself, a three-dimensional map of our presence in the solar system. By studying the edges of the umbra, we learn more about the very ground we stand on and the way it interacts with the light of the stars. The eclipse is a moment of self-reflection on a planetary scale, where our own shape is revealed to us through the mirror of the moon. Deep within the history of exploration, the careful timing of the shadow's progress was utilized by navigators to calculate longitude and refine early planetary maps. Before the invention of reliable marine chronometers, an eclipse was one of the few global time signals that could be seen simultaneously from vastly different points on the Earth. By comparing the local time an eclipse was observed to a reference time from a known location, sailors could determine their position on the vast and often treacherous open oceans. This transformed the moon into a vital navigation tool, a celestial clock that helped humanity bridge the gap between unknown seas and accurately mapped continents. It was a moment of shared human observation, where people on opposite sides of the world were united by the same darkening sky. This historical utility shows how the most abstract celestial events have always had a direct and practical impact on our ability to move through and understand our world. Surprisingly, even today, the precise optical tracking of the umbra's moving edge helps refine our complex mathematical models of the Earth-Moon system to a staggering degree of accuracy. Each observation of the shadow's transit provides a new set of data points that help us account for the subtle perturbations in the moon's orbit and the gradual slowing of the Earth's rotation over time. These models are essential for everything from predicting tides to planning future deep space missions that will use the moon as a jumping-off point for the rest of the solar system. Every eclipse is a refined measurement in an ongoing scientific dialogue, a moment where we update our understanding of the rhythmic, mechanical heart of our local cosmos. It is a process of constant polishing, where the ancient laws of physics are tested against the latest observations to ensure our maps of the future remain true. This ongoing work ensures that the universe remains a predictable and understandable place, a house of glass where every movement is accounted for. As you absorb this sense of absolute precision, allow your mind to drift into a state of total, effortless rest, knowing that the world and the moon are held in place by laws that are constant and beautiful. You are a part of this perfect mathematical harmony, a conscious observer within a system that is as reliable as the return of the sun. The shadow will pass, the light will return, and the knowledge we gain will light our way into the deep mysteries of the stars. As the shadow begins its inevitable departure, and the light prepares to return, the moon drifts steadily toward the eastern threshold of the terrestrial umbra. This movement marks the quiet, mesmerizing conclusion of totality, a moment where the deep celestial alignment finally begins to lose its absolute grip on the lunar landscape. For over an hour, the silver sphere has been cradled in a silent crimson cocoon, but the unyielding laws of orbital momentum now dictate a slow and graceful return to the sun's direct path. The transition is subtle at first, as the very edge of the moon approaches the region where the Earth's shadow is at its thinnest and most fragile. Deep within the core of the shadow, the coppery glow still holds sway over the ancient impact basins, yet the geometric centre of the event has already shifted. It is a time of gathering anticipation, where the stillness of the deep eclipse begins to give way to the promise of renewed brilliance. Every second brings the satellite closer to the blinding reality of the solar system, moving it from the sanctuary of the night back into the glare of the cosmic stage. We are witnessing the slow-motion unwinding of a perfect straight line, a gentle drifting away from the epicenter of the planetary void. The mesmerizing stillness is about to be shattered by the first spark of returning day. Surprisingly, the return of the light does not happen with a slow, gradual fade, but with a sudden and piercing flash that cuts through the deep red stillness like a celestial blade. A brilliant diamond-like sliver of pure white sunlight suddenly pierces the eastern edge of the copper-coloured sphere, signalling the immediate end of the total eclipse. This first direct ray of the sun is incredibly intense, carrying the raw, unfiltered energy of the star across the vacuum after its long journey around our world. The contrast between the dying crimson glow and this new electric brilliance is one of the most visually stunning moments in all of astronomy. It appears as a single, concentrated point of light, a white jewel set against the rusted, textured background of the fully eclipsed moon. This diamond ring effect possesses a unique and haunting beauty here, as it marks the restoration of the moon's true reflective nature. This spark is a physical proclamation that the alignment has broken, and the primary engine of our solar system has reclaimed its satellite. It is a moment of pure optical drama, where a single photon signals the end of a world's temporary darkness. The eye is drawn to this singular point, watching as it expands into a shimmering arc of white energy. This returning light feels incredibly and almost painfully bright after the soft, monochromatic hour of darkness that preceded its arrival. To a human observer, the contrast is so profound that the sliver of white light seems to radiate a glow far beyond its actual physical size. It acts as a powerful spotlight, immediately casting sharp and stark shadows once again across the jagged rims and deep floors of the lunar craters. The soft, ambient diffusion of the crimson twilight is instantly replaced by the high-contrast reality of direct solar radiation. Notice the sensation of your feet resting firmly on the ground, feeling the steady support of the earth as your mind processes this sudden shift from shadow to light. Just as the moon finds its orientation in the return of the sun, you are securely anchored in your own quiet space, breathing with a rhythmic, unhurried ease. The return of these shadows restores the familiar, three-dimensional texture of the moon, defining the peaks of mountains and the depths of valleys with clinical precision. It is a visual awakening, a restoration of the lunar character that had been softened and blurred by the copper light of totality. The world above is becoming once again a place of hard lines and absolute clarity, defined by the same star that governs our own waking lives. Deep within the physics of light, the red hue rapidly fades back into a cool grayscale, as the overwhelming volume of direct solar radiation begins to drown out the delicate atmospheric projection. The fragile ruby and copper tones, which required the absolute absence of white light to be seen, are simply erased by the sheer magnitude of the returning sun. It is a rapid and uncompromising transformation, where the ghostly beauty of the blood moon is replaced by the stark, familiar silver of the waxing crescent. The atmosphere of the Earth still bends its red light into the shadow, but that signal is now a mere whisper against the roaring brightness of the direct solar rays. This transition reveals the true nature of the moon as a neutral, reflective mirror, a world that has no colour of its own but merely wears the light that is cast upon it. The blood is washed away by the returning day, leaving the ancient lava seas and highland plains as cold and grey as they have been for billions of years. Watching this colour drain away is like watching a dream dissolve into the clarity of the morning, leaving behind only the memory of the crimson wonder. The celestial alchemy that turned rock into an ember is undone by the simple return of perspective and proximity to the star. The moon is no longer a glowing heart. It is once again a silent silver sentinel watching over the terrestrial night. If we were to look closer at the moving threshold of the light, we would see the curved shadow of the Earth begin its slow, steady retreat, back across the massive impact basins and lunar highlands. The same arc that once marched so aggressively toward the west now pulls back with a majestic, unhurried grace, revealing the landscape it had temporarily claimed. It sweeps over the Sea of Tranquility and the crater of Copernicus, uncovering the rugged terrain in a deliberate and mathematical sequence. This retreat is a visual representation of the Earth's own curvature moving away from the line of fire, a silhouette that is slowly being pulled back into the void. The line between light and dark is as sharp as a razor, a moving frontier that defines the immediate return of solar energy to the lunar crust. It is a reversal of the entire journey, a mirror image of the encroaching darkness that defined the beginning of the eclipse. The shadow does not simply vanish, it recedes with a dignity that matches its arrival, proving that the geometry of the spheres is as reliable in its departure as it is in its onset. We are watching the planetary profile shrink away, a dark veil being folded and put away until the next cycle of syzygy calls it forth once again. The moon is slowly emerging from the terrestrial wake, sailing back into the unobstructed brilliance of the inner solar system. If we were to analyse the physical impact, this return of heat is immediate and profound, as temperatures on the surface begin to climb at a rate that is nearly as violent as their initial fall. The deeply frozen uppermost layers of lunar dust, which had reached cryogenic levels during the hour of totality, begin a rapid and invisible thawing under the intense solar bombardment. Every molecule of regolith vibrates with renewed energy as it absorbs the first direct heat it has felt since the eclipse began. This thermal recovery is a silent and invisible explosion of energy, a worldwide heating event that ripples through the top inches of the lunar soil. The stress of the contraction is replaced by the stress of expansion, as the minerals of the moon adjust to the return of the sun's fire. Notice the gentle warmth of your own breath as it leaves your body, a soft and constant internal heat that requires no celestial alignment to maintain. Your body is a steady furnace of life, existing in a state of thermal balance that is a rare and precious gift in the vast cold of the universe. On the moon, this balance is entirely external, and the return of the light is a literal lifeline for the frozen rock. The thermal shock of the exit is the final physical act of the eclipse, a rapid retuning of the world's temperature. The deep cold is pushed back into the shadows of the craters, defeated by the return of the primary source of planetary warmth. The restoration of the moon's full brilliance feels like the successful conclusion of a great celestial experiment, a proof that the universe is still functioning according to its ancient and unyielding laws. We see the moon not just as a rock, but as a beacon, a nightlight for our world that has been temporarily dimmed and then miraculously rekindled. The sight of the silver sliver expanding back into a full circle is a visual metaphor for renewal and the persistence of the light. Every person watching from a backyard or a rooftop shares in this moment of return, a communal recognition that the shadow has passed and the light has endured. It is the final act of the drama, a quiet resolution that leaves the observer with a sense of awe and a renewed appreciation for the constant presence of our satellite. The moon is no longer a stranger dressed in red. It is the familiar friend that returns to light our path once again. With the moon regaining its full reflective power, the ambient light of the terrestrial night increases significantly, slowly washing out the fainter background stars that had briefly appeared during totality. The deep, transparent window into the heart of the galaxy begins to close as the local spotlight of the moon once again dominates the nocturnal canopy. One by one, the distant nebulae and the shimmering dust of the Milky Way fade back into the velvet darkness, hidden by the proximity of our own companion. The night sky returns to its usual hierarchy, where the brightest objects in the neighbourhood dictate what we are allowed to see. This washout is a gentle erasure of the cosmic perspective we gained during the hour of darkness, a return to the localised view of our own planetary backyard. It is a reminder that the light of the moon, while beautiful, is also a veil that obscures the true depth and immensity of the universe beyond. Notice the soft and easy focus of your eyes. feeling no strain as you imagine the distant stars slowly fading into the brightening glow of the moon. Your mind is quiet and your vision is clear, resting in the simple beauty of the returning silver light. The transition is peaceful and expected, a closing of the celestial curtain that leaves you in a state of deep, satisfied rest. For another full hour after the return of the first sunlight, the moon must still pass through the outer penumbra before the celestial mechanics of the event are fully complete. This final stage is a ghostly reflection of the beginning, a subtle and often unnoticed dimming that lingers on the lunar surface as it exits the very edges of the Earth's shadow. To the casual observer, the eclipse may seem over, but the high-precision instruments of the astronomers continue to track the minute variations in brightness that define the tail end of the alignment. It is a period of near fullness, where the moon is almost restored to its peak brilliance, but still carries a faint dusky reminder of its journey through the dark. This lingering shadow is the final trace of the planetary silhouette, a thinning veil of grey that is slowly being pulled away by the relentless motion of the lunar orbit. It is the long, quiet coda to the celestial symphony, a time of fading transitions that ensures the return to light is as measured as the descent into darkness. This hour of penumbral passage provides a chance for the lunar surface to fully stabilise and for the observers to reflect on the immense spectacle they have just witnessed. The urgency of totality is gone, replaced by a slow and graceful exit from the cosmic trap. The universe is taking its time to finish the performance, ensuring every mathematical coordinate is respected before the curtains are finally drawn. The ultimate conclusion of the eclipse leaves the night sky exactly as it was before the alignment began, with no permanent physical trace of the dramatic cosmic event. There are no scars on the moon, no changes to the stars, and no lingering alterations to the Earth's atmosphere after the shadow has moved on. It is an event of pure geometry and light, a temporary intersection of paths that leaves the participants entirely unchanged once they have parted ways. This temporary nature is what makes the eclipse so incredibly precious and profound. It is a masterpiece that is painted and then immediately erased by the very laws that created it. The universe does not hold onto its shadows, but allows them to sweep through space and then vanish back into the infinite blackness. We're left with nothing but our records, our data, and the memory of the crimson glow to prove that the Earth once reached out and touched its neighbour. This final realization brings a sense of deep, unshakable peace, knowing that the great motions of the cosmos are both powerful and perfectly harmless. The sky is restored, the light is constant, and the dance continues without end. You can rest now in the absolute security of this repeating cycle, feeling completely supported, peaceful, and at one with the silent, enduring clockwork of the stars. Within this silent, enduring clockwork of the stars, we find ourselves contemplating a beautiful mathematical paradox that seems to defy the chaotic and entropic architecture of the surrounding universe. While much of the deep cosmos operates on a scale of random decay and unpredictable stellar collisions, the lunar eclipse stands as a monument to absolute crystalline order. It is a stunning realization that amidst the swirling nebulae and the violent birth of distant suns, our local neighbourhood adheres to a geometry so precise it feels like a deliberate design. This paradox lies in the fact that such a perfect, repeating alignment is even possible in a reality that often favours randomness and vast, empty distances. We often perceive the night sky as a static and unmoving backdrop to our daily lives, yet the eclipse reveals a hidden, meticulous structure that governs every motion of the celestial spheres. This mathematical harmony is not just a curiosity for the mind to ponder. It is a fundamental property of the gravity that binds our world to its satellite. By witnessing the shadow fall across the craters, we're essentially looking at a solved equation written in light and rock across the vacuum of space. It forces the human mind to reconcile the infinite complexity of the universe with the elegant geometric simplicity of a single straight line drawn through the dark. Surprisingly, the universe offers these moments of total clarity, as a counterweight to the vast, incomprehensible scales that usually define our place in the void. The eclipse is a rare instance where the immense and the intimate are perfectly synchronized, allowing us to see the fundamental math of the heavens with our own eyes. It is a profound and comforting realization that even in the infinite void, there are laws that remain constant, reliable, and hauntingly beautiful. The paradox of the shadow is the ultimate proof of a universe that is both complex beyond measure and simple enough to be understood through the light. Notice how the sheer happenstance of our physical placement in the solar system creates a visual experience that is almost too perfect to be a purely accidental alignment. We happen to exist on a planet of just the right size, accompanied by a moon at just the right distance, to experience this flawless shadow play every few years. If our satellite were slightly smaller, or its orbit just a bit further away, the Earth's shadow would never fully engulf it, and the majesty of a total eclipse would be forever lost to us. This specific ratio between the diameter of our world and the distance to the moon is one of the most remarkable coincidences in the known galaxy. This structure of the Earth-Moon system is a delicate Goldilocks arrangement, where every physical variable is perfectly tuned to allow for the spectacular projection of the umbra. From our perspective on the ground, the moon and the terrestrial shadow appear to be perfectly matched in scale, allowing for a total submersion that is both deep and visually balanced. If we were to look closer at other planets, we would find that such a perfect aesthetic alignment is incredibly rare, making our local sky a unique theatre of light. It is as if the universe has provided us with a front-row seat to a masterpiece of orbital synchronization that few other worlds can claim. As you reflect on this incredible cosmic luck, allow your breathing to remain slow and effortless, feeling the complete weight of your body supported by the solid world beneath you. Your heart beats with a steady, natural rhythm that mirrors the reliable pulse of the tides influenced by the very moon you are contemplating. You are a part of this perfectly balanced system, held in place by the same gravity that keeps the moon in its precise and beautiful orbit. Every breath you take is synchronized with a world that is exactly where it needs to be to witness the wonders of the dark. Surprisingly, the universe is slowly dismantling the very theatre that we currently enjoy with such profound and quiet wonder. Future observers, should they still walk the Earth, will look up to see a moon that merely clips the edge of the shadow, never finding the deep, total immersion that we witness today. The perfect syzygy we have mapped will eventually become an impossible geometry, a relic of a time when the moon was closer and the terrestrial shadows were longer. This realization adds a layer of poignant urgency to every eclipse we see, knowing that the clock is ticking on this specific celestial phenomenon. This slow, cosmic retreat reminds us that the solar system is not a static machine, but a living and evolving entity that is constantly reshaping itself. The sky of tomorrow will not be the sky of today, and the shadows we currently study are a gift of our specific location in time. We are witnesses to a temporary perfection, a moment of equilibrium that will eventually surrender to the expanding distances of the void. To watch an eclipse now is to see a phenomenon that is slowly, quietly vanishing from the future of the universe. Deep within this timeline of change, we must recognize that we are currently living in a privileged, temporary era of cosmic history where total lunar eclipses are beautifully realized. We occupy a narrow window of several million years where the moon is at the perfect distance to be swallowed by the terrestrial umbra, while still appearing large enough to dominate the night sky. This golden age of eclipses coincides exactly with the rise of human consciousness and the birth of our scientific curiosity, allowing us to be the primary witnesses to this geometric peak. We are the observers who have arrived at exactly the right moment to see the most spectacular performance the Earth-Moon system has to offer. This structure of timing is a profound realization that connects our brief lives to the multi-billion-year history of the solar system. We are not just at the right place, but at the right time, standing in a small pocket of history where the shadows and the light are in perfect balance. if humanity had emerged much earlier or much later, the nature of our night sky would be fundamentally different, and the blood moon might be an impossible myth. This temporal coincidence is a reminder of how lucky we are to be alive during this specific stage of the planetary dance. Surprisingly, the immense shadow that darkens the moon during an eclipse is the very same shadow that stretches out into the void behind you every single night. While we usually only perceive the darkness on the ground beneath our feet, the Earth's umbra is a permanent million-mile-long pillar of night that follows us relentlessly through our orbit. An eclipse is simply the rare moment when the moon happens to wander into this pre-existing corridor of shade, making a permanent physical feature of our planet finally visible. The darkness does not happen during an eclipse. It is always there, waiting silently in the vacuum for something to cross its path. If we were to look closer at the space behind our world, we would realize that we are always trailing a massive, tapering cone of absolute stillness through the stars. We live our lives just a few miles from the base of this immense structure, unaware that it reaches out past the orbit of the moon and deep into the cold solar neighborhood. The eclipse serves as a brief, glowing map of this invisible architecture, revealing the scale of our own planetary shadow as it paints the lunar plains. It is a stunning realization that the night is not just a time of day, but a physical object that we drag behind us through the vacuum. This realization shifts our perspective from a localized view of the evening to a cosmic understanding of our world's presence in space. We are always followed by the shadow of our home, a silent companion that only the moon is large enough to catch. Every time you stand in the dark of your own backyard, you're standing at the very beginning of a shadow that may, at this very moment, be reaching out to touch the craters of another world. The eclipse is the universe's way of showing us the true, staggering reach of our own existence in the void. Every single object in the universe, from the smallest grain of cosmic dust to the most massive galaxy, casts a long and silent shadow through the infinite void. Space is a realm defined by the interplay of light and mass, where every solid body intercepts the radiation of distant stars to create a hidden trail of darkness. Yet surprisingly, only a vanishingly small number of these shadows ever intersect with other worlds in such a highly visible and dramatic way. The lunar eclipse is a rare exception to the general rule of cosmic isolation, a moment where two worlds find each other in the vast and empty reaches of the night. Most shadows in the universe fall on nothing at all, stretching out for light years through the vacuum without ever touching a single atom of matter. They are invisible ghosts of the stars, phantoms of mass that travel through the dark until they finally dissipate into the background of the universe. To have a shadow fall upon a solid world and be reflected back to an observer is a statistical miracle, a crowning achievement of celestial alignment. We are witnessing one of the few places in the entire galaxy where the darkness is given a canvas and a witness. A lunar eclipse is simply the universe making the invisible architecture of gravity and light momentarily and brilliantly visible to the naked human eye. Usually the forces that hold the moon in its orbit and the light that travels through the atmosphere are abstract concepts that we understand only through mathematics and physics. However, when the shadow falls, these invisible threads are suddenly given a physical, coloured manifestation that we can witness in real time. We are seeing the literal cogs of the solar system as they turn, watching the interplay of mass and radiation as it sculpts the appearance of a distant world. This structure of the eclipse allows us to perceive the curvature of the light as it bends around our planet, and the solidity of the gravity that keeps the moon on its precise path. The crimson glow is a visual readout of our atmosphere's density, and the moving shadow is a physical proof of our world's rotation and size. It is as if a giant cosmic hand has pulled back the curtain of the night to reveal the mechanical truth of our existence. We're no longer just guessing at the laws of nature, we're watching them perform on a stage that is 250,000 miles wide. This visual revelation transforms the abstract into the visceral, turning a science lesson into a profound spiritual experience of connection. We see that the universe is not a chaotic mess of random events, but a highly organised and beautiful system that operates with the precision of a master clock. To look at the eclipsed moon is to look at the very face of the laws that govern everything from the falling of a leaf to the rotation of a galaxy. It is a moment of absolute clarity, where the invisible becomes the undeniable. The event directly and elegantly connects the microscopic dust in our own atmosphere with the massive barren craters of a world located 250,000 miles away. Every tiny particle of volcanic ash or desert sand currently floating in our sky plays a direct role in determining the exact shade of red that illuminates the lunar plains. This scale synthesis is a staggering realization, showing that the smallest and most fragile parts of our world are intimately linked to the geological features of our closest celestial neighbour. The moon essentially becomes a giant projection screen for the chemical and physical state of the air we are breathing at this very moment. Notice how the deep interconnectedness of these two worlds defies our usual perception of space as a series of isolated objects. We are not separate from the moon. We are linked to it by a continuous stream of light and shadow that carries the information of our world across the vacuum. The crimson light hitting the Sea of Crises is the same light that grazed the tops of the Andes or the surface of the Pacific just seconds before. This bridge of photons collapses the distance between us, making the moon feel like an extension of our own planetary environment. It deeply forces us to recognize that Earth is not an isolated, self-contained island, but an active and vital participant in a dynamic and moving solar system. We often think of our world as a closed bubble, a safe haven that is protected from the harsh realities of the vacuum by our atmosphere and our gravity. Yet, the eclipse proves that we are constantly interacting with the worlds around us, casting our shadow and projecting our light onto the barren surfaces of our neighbours. Our planet is a moving, breathing and casting entity that leaves a tangible mark on the celestial bodies that share our local neighbourhood. This realization dismantles the illusion of terrestrial isolation and replaces it with a profound sense of cosmic citizenship. We are part of a larger community of worlds, a member of a dancing family of planets that are forever influencing each other's appearance and motion. The eclipse is the moment where our outward influence is made most visible, showing us that we are not just observers of the universe, but active players within it. We are the architects of the shadow, the source of the red light, and the center of the geometric alignment that defines the night. Surprisingly, this sense of participation makes our homeworld feel more integrated and less alone in the vastness of the void. We see that we're not just drifting through the dark, but are tethered to the moon and the sun by a web of forces that are both powerful and beautiful. The Earth is a part of a much larger living system, and we are the conscious part of that system that has finally learned to look up and recognize our own place in the dance. To witness this event is to consciously watch the physical gears of the cosmos turning in real time directly above our heads, an experience that fundamentally shifts our perception of time and space. We see the moon moving, the shadow advancing, and the light shifting in a way that provides a visceral sense of the massive scale and the incredible, silent speed of the solar system. It is a moment where the seemingly static night sky is revealed to be a place of constant high-velocity motion, a giant celestial clockwork that has been turning with the weight of billions of years of momentum. We stand as the tiny, conscious observers of a magnificent and unfolding process that is infinitely older than our entire human civilization. If we were to look closer at the moving shadow, we would actually be witnessing the literal high-speed flight of our own planet as it hurls itself through the vacuum at 67,000 miles per hour. The eclipse is the only time we can truly see our own orbital velocity, mapped out in the slow and steady progress of our world's silhouette across the lunar surface. It is a dizzying, beautiful realization that we are all passengers on a high-speed journey through the stars, and the eclipse is our window into the hidden mechanics of that flight. We are the inhabitants of a magnificent blue and white spacecraft, watching the scenery of the solar system change as we move in an eternal, perfect circle around our parent star. Let your final thoughts settle into a state of deep, unshakable wonder, feeling the quiet, rhythmic pulse of the universe within your own resting being. You're a part of the gears, a part of the light, and a part of the shadow, held in the perfect and eternal embrace of a cosmos that is both staggeringly vast and intimately known. The dance continues, the light remains constant, and you are perfectly at peace in the very heart of the magnificent unfolding story of the stars. In the shadow of our own world cast upon another, we finally see that we are not merely observing the universe, but physically woven into the very fabric of its light and darkness. Deep within the profound alignment of the celestial spheres, the ultimate realization of the lunar journey reveals itself as a grand synthesis of our own existence. In the shadow of our own world cast upon another, we finally see that we're not merely observing the universe, but physically woven into the very fabric of its light and darkness. This shared shadow is the bridge between the terrestrial and the infinite, a silent proof that we belong to the stars. The slow, rhythmic pulse of the cosmos begins to recede as your attention drifts back to the physical space you inhabit. Notice the weight of your feet against the soft fabric of the bed, feeling the tension drain away from your toes like a shadow retreating into the night. Surprisingly, the body knows exactly how to settle, allowing every muscle in your ankles and calves to become heavy and still. If we were to look closer at your knees and thighs, we would find a deep, unshakable sense of surrender. This quiet room provides a sanctuary where the vastness of the heavens is replaced by the comforting, grounded reality of the present. Your hips and lower back sink deeper into the mattress, finding a perfect and effortless support that requires nothing from you but your presence. The middle of your body begins to soften, expanding and contracting with a breath that is as steady as the turning of a great orbital wheel. Every muscle in your stomach and chest releases its hold, allowing a wave of total relaxation to wash upward toward your shoulders. This weightless feeling spreads through your heart, quieting the systems that have carried you through the many hours of the day. The fabric beneath your shoulders feels cool and inviting, providing a stable foundation for your heavy, tired limbs. This quiet room is filled with a soft, velvet-like stillness that wraps around you like a protective blanket of peace. Your arms rest naturally by your sides in a state of absolute, unforced repose, feeling the cool air grounding you in physical comfort. Notice how the rhythm of your breathing has become a slow, hypnotic anchor that keeps you tethered to this moment of rest. Each inhalation brings a sense of deep, cooling comfort, while each exhalation carries away the final remnants of the day's activity. The pillow supports your neck with a gentle, perfect firmness, allowing the small muscles at the base of your skull to finally and completely let go. Surprisingly, the body has become a vessel of pure stillness, sinking deeper into the soft embrace of the mattress with every passing second. Your jaw relaxes, leaving a small space between your teeth as the tension evaporates from your cheeks and forehead. The eyelids grow heavy, pressing down with a weight that is both soothing and undeniable as everything outside the room fades into a distant, unimportant memory. This quiet room is now a darkened sanctuary where everything you need is right here. The air is still, the bed is soft, and the mind is finally beautifully empty of all thoughts and images. You're drifting in a sea of pure, dreamless tranquility, where the only reality is the steady rise and fall of your own peaceful chest. And now 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.